of the Break the Rules stream. I am your host, Lev Polyakov at LevPo on Twitter, and we are all the way live. Back with us is Alexander Bard and Lord Miles, all the way live from Ukraine. Alexander Bard, all the way live from Sweden. This is one of the best crossover episodes I could ever hope for, where we are getting the experienced with the, I don't know how to say, like, Alexander, you would be the wise wizard, and Lord Miles would be your sorcerer's apprentice, going out into the world, meeting new people, exploring new things, and trying to figure out what it's all about. So
Bilbo and Gandalf.
Yes, exactly. Bilbo and Gandalf, indeed. Now, I want to first start with Lord Miles. Just update us on where in the world is Lord Miles right now and what is Lord Miles up to. And also, shout out to all of the Instagram people who are watching this right now. This is being live streamed on my Instagram, which is instagram.com/Lev Polyakov. So let's just go through this. Lord Miles, take it away. And also, Gio, no typing.
I'm not typing.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know what that was.
I don't know where this typing sound is.
I don't even know where I am half the time anymore. I feel like an Alzheimer's patient just wandering out his care home. But at the moment, I believe I'm in Ukraine, and I've made friends with some soldiers, so they gave me a uniform. I think I'm maybe enlisted in the Ukrainian army by accident, and I'm going to the front line soon.
Wow.
Oh.
It's kind of the colors of Sweden too, right? You have the yellow.
Yeah, they are literally the same colors. They both fought against Peter the Great. So I don't know if the Ukrainians picked up the Swedish color, whatever. But actually, Ukraine is fundamentally the Kievo Rus. The Kievo Rus was founded by Swedes about 1200, 1300 years ago. There's a long historical connection between Sweden and Ukraine. And this is also why it's so important to understand what the Ukrainian national identity today, that is on the threat, of course, on the Russian one, is because the East Slavic culture is divided between the Kievo Rus and the other one, which is Novgorod. And Novgorod, interesting enough, which is the other major Russian capital historically, is located precisely between St. Petersburg and Moscow. But as we understand, the Russian heartland is toward the northeast of Ukraine, whereas Ukrainian identity starts with here. And this is this long tradition of this, of course. And I think it was at the Battle of Poltava when the Ukrainians sided with the Swedes, but the Russians still won and chased away the Swedes. That's when the Ukrainians decided to take up the blue and yellow colors for their flag. And they basically took the Polish flag, which is always red and white, and just copied it. Instead, they used the two colors of yellow and blue, which ironically is identical to Sweden and Denmark, because Denmark has kept red and white colors, their flag, kind of blue, and which is the oldest national still used flag in the world, and the Swedish flag is important.
But it is pretty interesting how you have a country like Russia, which for a very long time has been conquered and led by native non-Russians. So you would have people coming from the Nordic countries, then you would have the people who are the European leaders coming in, like they are all each other's cousin out there in Europe, Catherine the Great and whatnot. And right now there is this tension that's building up with Putin, who recalls this time when Ukraine was considered to be a part of the Soviet Union, for all intents and purposes. But the problem is that the culture has moved on. But I'm curious, Lord Miles, what have you noticed within the culture of Ukraine that you've been in right now? How do they react to Russia? What's going on there?
Well, I made the mistake of bringing a Putin mask with me and wearing around the streets of Russia. I love some places. I wonder why, but honestly, they dislike Russia immensely for obvious reasons. They're stamping on their civil liberties, to put it lightly. And I think Ukraine wants some breathing room. They want to make their own path. They have their own manifest destiny. They have pride of their nation. That's one thing they didn't get under the Soviet Union. They were just a puppet for a bigger machine. But now I think they want to build their own.
That's what it looks like to me. And Alexander, for the people who say that these are two places that were once conjoined as to one, and also throwing in here, Lord Miles, you recently become fascinated by
is somebody typing? Because I hear typing sounds all the time.
Yeah, I'm not typing.
Yeah, I'm not typing either.
Okay.
No.
I have no idea what's going on here. But
just unmute while you're typing, and then
yes,
and mute while you're typing.
No, nobody's typing it right now.
Okay, I think there's several things that are happening at the moment. Of course, the battleground is Belarus, which is the third country of this sort of East Slavic culture here. which is very, very close to having the sort of Ukrainian uprising that, of course, the Ukraine had and became democratic. And Belarus was lost to Putin because Putin did the only thing he knows how to do, which is basically sending troops to support deeply, deeply unpopular dictator compared to Putin, which is Lukashenko. And Lukashenko, of course, basically allows the Russians to do whatever they like in Belarus as long as he's officially in power. And this is, of course, why Ukraine is problematic. The other thing is, historically speaking, Ukraine has always been divided. The name Ukraine literally means borderland. Ukraina means borderland in all East Slavic languages. It is the borderland. Of course, fundamentally, it's Poland and Catholicism to the west, which is West Slavic. And then it is Russian and Orthodox to the east, which is East Slavic. And a large part of the population of Ukraine speak Russian as first language. Ukrainian was suppressed during the Soviet Union. It's bumping back again. You have a strong sense of Ukrainian nationalism in Kiev and west of Kiev. You go to Lviv, which used to be a Polish city, by the way, in western Ukraine. It's unthinkable they would ever be under Putin or Russia, whatever. They don't feel like Russians at all. He will remind you instantly that Stalin tried to, and basically did starve millions of Ukrainians to death in the 1930s, just to control them. They hated the Soviet Union. They wanted to get out. The Ukrainian nationalism in Western Ukraine is incredibly strong. It's way more problematic when you get to Eastern Ukraine. And we get to the Donbass, for example, they're fighting over at the moment. Everybody has Russian passport already in Donetsk and Luhansk. And they speak the Russian language. They never speak Ukrainian. And this is problematic. And of course, there are people who support Ukraine in East Ukraine, but they're probably doing more because they want a democratic path forward. They don't want to live under the sort of cynical oligarchic type of leadership that Putin represents in Russia. But they feel that they're negotiating between the Russians and the Ukrainians in the sense that when they're cynical, they say these are just two mafias fighting it out. But when they get more sincere about it, but when it comes to my children and my children's future, I think my children are better off in a democratic system than would be in another version of the Tsarist dictatorship.
Someone in the chat.
People haven't agreed. If you go to Donetsk, people haven't agreed. There are a lot of people in Donetsk on the side of the Ukrainians, but not culturally, more like because of democracy. Whereas people on the side of the Russians, they say, no, we're Russians. We should have been part of Russia. We just by accident happen to be in the Ukrainian Soviet Republic or part of Russia. And the same problem is, of course, the one in Crimea. Same one.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, Alexander. The thing that I'm seeing from Lord Miles as far as the kind of group that I would say Lord Miles is in as far as young people who are very, I'd say sillier than angrier than anything else as far as their approach to life. But real quick, though, they look at a lot of problems and they end up not looking so much at Putin or Russia, which they see as being based and trad-pilled, but they start looking at, for example, the CIA. They start looking at the Rothschilds. That tweet, I recall that tweet you did, Lord Miles. So the reason why I'm saying this is I think there is a fascination with not so much who are the puppet masters of this foreign country that we don't even know anything about, but who are the puppet masters of this Western world that's got a lot of problems in it right now that seems like it's going in a very totalitarian direction. Those are the things that I think are fascinating most people. So I'm curious, first off, Lord Miles, what your approach to this is, and do you agree with me as far as the assessment here? And then I would love to hear from Alexander as a response.
Well, I believe there is some sort of entity out there controlling certain nations and pointing things and throwing money around to cause conflicts. I can't say which nation is doing it and which countries they control, but I think we know which one I'm speaking about as a right-wing person, to put it lightly.
Well, actually, I'm curious.
Britain, of course.
Well, if we can get into this without being shut down by the YouTube algorithm, I think we should. Alexander, how would you respond to that?
Speak your mind, boy.
I don't trust Israel, put it lightly.
Well, I actually, now that you bring this up, Lord Miles, I've been since we announced this podcast, I've been grilled all week by Twitter anons that I have to ask you the hard questions.
Yeah.
So let's just get it out in the open. Lord Miles, are you or are you not an MI6 agent that has been sent by the British government as a sort of right-wing COINTELPRO, a sort of LARP of the British explorer and there's some kind of psyop going on. Have you ever taken money from the crown, Lord Miles?
Well, yes, because I steal tax money. No, joking. But
are you a glowy or not?
Even if I wasn't glowy, we wouldn't let you guys find out either way.
It's very interesting, Gio, how you had.
You guys aren't going to believe me anyway.
Well, it's very interesting, Gio, how you had that. You had that in the back.
Uniforms and the
Yeah, but Gio, you had that in the back pocket right as it was getting hot. Right as it was getting hot, you wanted to introduce that to deflect away from the situation. You're the one who wants to shut it down, Gio, not me. I don't want to shut it down, and I don't want to convene the council either. What I want to do.
Interrupted a based point.
What I want to do is get to the bottom of this, as far as whether one country or another has influence, and what kind of influence, and how much does that, let's say, degrade the other countries. That is something that I think has been on the mind of a lot of people. Alexander, what would be
why are you so concerned? Because this is so boyish. Like, boys think countries are important. It's not when you grow up. Business is important. So what's important is that, can your business expand, and can you make a profit? And in that way, Russians, Ukrainians, Israelis, Americans are no different from one another. When it comes to the Jewish question right now, Russia, Ukraine, the Jewish oligarchs are doing really well in both countries. I don't think they have an interest in creating a conflict. I mean, the Jewish oligarchs have been doing really fine under Putin. Putin has two things he's very aware of. He must please the Jews, and he must please the Tatars. Okay? The reason why Russia was so invested in winning the war, at least formally, in Chechnya. I mean, they lost it in reality, but gave it back to the Chechens, but the Chechens pretended to be part of Russia. The reason why they invested so heavily in Chechnya, which has no oil, no coal, no gas, no iron ore, nothing, not even lithium, nothing, right? The reason they invest so heavily is because after the implosion of the Soviet Union, the idea was this: well, the Soviet Union is gone, but Russia is still an empire. It must be kept together. Yeltsin got Russia out of the Soviet Union, failed because of trying to introduce democracy to Russia, which was impossible. He failed. And that's what Putin realized. And Putin realized it must either be a democracy or an empire if you're Russia. He decided to go for the imperial option, which basically said that losing the Soviet Union was a big mistake. Not that he meant it, but we must keep Russia together. That is Putin's entire raison d'etre. And if he would lose that's why he won the war in Chechnya, basically allowing the Chechens to do what they like, but pretended to have won the war, to keep Russia together. Because if the Tatars leave, Russia's done. The Tatarstan is here, very important. If you haven't been to Russia, you don't understand it's important. The only place with more cranes and more skyscrapers being built in Russia than Moscow or St. Petersburg is Kazan. Kazan is a huge city of several million people right on the Volga. Now, if the Ukraine is the Dnieper, then Russia is the Volga. The Volga River is everything Russia's about. It runs all the way from northern Russia down to the Caspian Sea, core heart of Russia. Whoever controls the Volga controls Russia. And on the Volga is Kazan, and around Kazan is Tatarstan, because the Tatars ruled Russia for hundreds of years. Essentially, the Tatars are a hybrid of Mongols and Russians. This is what Russia has that Western Europe does not have. This is what Russia has that Ukraine does not have. Tatars is exclusively part of Russia. So it's both good to keep the Tatar element in Russian culture, because whenever Russia looks away from the West, looks inwards or eastwards, they take out the Tatar element of Russian culture. So Tatarstan is important to Russia, but it's also geographical location. If the landmass right in the middle of Volga leaves Russia, the Soviet Union implosion will be repeated even worse, and Russia will fall apart. China will probably take Eastern Manchuria. Boom! Russia's gone. That's what Russians know. And this is Putin's strong point. Putin is still sitting where he's at because people in Russia, even the people who hate Putin the most, are terrified if he's gone, that Russia will implode. That's the card he's playing. But he's also weak because he has no exit. He has no crown prince. He hasn't arranged for where to retire. Even Idi Amin knew he would fly to Saudi Arabia when he was over. Putin hasn't arranged anything like that, meaning that Putin is terrified. If he steps down, he'll get shot. All the oligarchs that went with Putin go. A new oligarchy has to be established, and that's going to be bloody, and probably only a really strict military dictatorship can keep Russia together.
Well,
I think at the end of the day, Russia has to go the same way as the other old European empires. It has to. And we're seeing the remnants of that in Britain. Britain is going to fall apart in the next years. That's finally the death of the British Empire often goes into. But something similar that I think is going on in Russia. think Russia should be a continent with several different nations. I'm a big favor of city-states. I think Kaliningrad should go independent and become the Dubai of Northern Europe. Why not, right? Now, I think eventually Russia has to confront the fact it cannot be the sort of empire that it's tried to be, because it's pathetically nostalgic, and it has to become something different. Why not a continent? Something like that.
It's possible, but Lord.
Yeah, go ahead, Lord Miles.
Well, Lord Miles, I'm curious about your reaction, and also whether you agree with Alexander that looking at the whole country-related things is a boy's play and not a man's play, as far as who is behind it, whether it's one country or another.
Well, I think it's a little bit more complex than that. I think at the end of the day, countries are in charge of major events and have these agendas, but at the same time there are obviously other players like mega corporations and institutions and so on. I think we really need to look at who's actually funding these things and where the money actually flows. If we go back to it, we see it's certain very rich, powerful individuals who's also got pockets in big countries and so on. Basically, if you look at dual citizenships and governments too, you can kind of see the agenda there.
So if we were to pick one, for example, I don't know, like you were talking about the Rothschilds, for example, would that be, Alexander, something that's relevant today, or is that just a boogeyman back from the 1800s that still haunts us?
Oh, God, Rothschilds. I mean, God, they're just tired of being Rothschild to begin with. I mean, the way I started this, that I'm a Zoroastrian, right? So when I came to India, of course, I realized the Parsis of India. I mean, if anybody beats the Jews when it comes to academic merit, average income, well, it's the Parsis of India. And it was fantastic to just be invited into their culture and converted to their religion. And, there's a certain point where people are so tired of being successful and running the world or being involved in running the world, they just want to get out of it. The first thing they want to get out of it is politics. They just put anybody in there who can do the political theater, whatever, running nation states, whatever, let them do that. And then retire and have capital, and have the capital being tied to business, and then make a profit from the capital. So that's how you run a Swiss bank. That's how you're really successful these days. You don't want to be part of these games. You don't want to run a country. You don't want to run around with a flag in your hand. That's for 11-year-olds. No, you want your business to be solid, and you don't want interference with others, and you want it to be calm and quiet, because then the stock market. Russia is no different than that. Ukraine is no different than that. It's more like, where are the stock exchanges here? And how do you then tie a government to that? And then how you wave a flag and claim some kind of historical mythos, call it Ukraine or Russia, whatever, that can then work. And then the problem is only, but then when you go into these systemic things, so you sort of retire from politics, and you make sure your kids get an academic education, have some official merit, and then stay some solid job somewhere, and basically you run a bank. Then you become really successful. That's what the Parsis of India have done successfully. They're immensely wealthy and bored with it. But why not? That's the end of the success. I think the problem here is that now we've discovered that we have two flags: the Russian flag that tries to be an empire, and Ukraine desperately wants to be at least Poland, and Poland wants to be Germany or something like that. So that's the culture, the political theater that's going on here. We don't know where the stability comes in. The problem is there's not a third solid power that can talk between Russians and Ukrainians and sort things out and create a permanent solution that will work. Putin tries to do that admirably by creating a new Jalta with Americans and the British. But I don't think he can do that. I think it has to be some kind of dialogue between the Russians and the Ukrainians, or at least between the oligarchs of Russia and the oligarchs of Ukraine. And they settle for some kind of border. The problem is, if you give the Donbass now after he took the Crimea, okay, both would have voted for Putin anyway, to be honest. The vast majority of people are Russians, not Ukrainians, in those two places. Maybe Ukrainians get to keep Odessa and a nice little harbor and, some resorts on the Black Sea coast, and then Putin and Russia gets to keep Crimea. I don't know. But the problem is Putin then, the next time he has a problem at home, which is when he goes to war, is he then going to go for Kharkiv the next time? I think Putin wants to take Donbass and be fine with that, but then he wants a puppet regime in Kiev, like he has right now in Minsk. And I don't think that is sustainable, because I don't think Lukashenko is going to stay in power anyway. I think Navalny is still unaccounted for. I still think, if you look further down the line, generationally speaking, I think there's going to be a lot more havoc coming out of this, and I don't think the Putin model is going to work. And the day Putin goes, it either goes towards military dictatorship of Russia, and then war with all neighbors, or it goes towards some kind of more openness, in which case Russia has to be demanded.
Gio.
Yeah, but Lukashenko's pretty he's pretty solid though. At least from that's what we get here in the West is that he's a pretty popular leader. I mean, I don't know.
Lukashenko? Are you kidding? What? We have Belarusians everywhere in stock where I live. They just emigrated en masse. Everything left. And, the tech scene died, which I work with. I work in Belarus. Right? The programmers don't get work any longer because now you employ the Romanians and the Ukrainians because you cannot employ the Belarusians because you have to go fucking Lukashenko and his corrupt family. He's terrible. Putin at least is good at being dictator.
But he has a lot of based policies, Alexander.
What?
He has a lot of based policies that a lot of people on 4chan admire. So I don't know what's the problem here.
4chan doesn't run the fucking world. 4chan is just full of 11-year-olds that don't have a dick yet.
Think? Oh, God. No, but in all seriousness, why do you think, though, I guess to Lord Miles's point, I get what you're saying about how nation states are irrelevant, but I do think that when
they're secondary. They're secondary. Well, they're theatrically relevant, but they're not really relevant. Real relevance is with capital and business and attention and the internet. It's not the running nation state.
But then why do you think that the American security state has been so obsessed over Ukraine to the point where they're they're America's next best ally, and how Biden is going apoplectic over Putin? Why do you think that the security theater has
because if the Ukraine is taken or gets a puppet regime or Putin wins, as soon as Xi Jinping in China's under stress is going to take Taiwan, and then America's done. You just lost Afghanistan. Embarrassingly. Pathetically. Vietnam all over again. You cannot win wars. America cannot win wars because nobody dares to die in America for anything.
Yeah, except Lord Miles, and he's not even American.
You can throw billions of dollars onto the U.S. Army. If it doesn't want to die anywhere, it cannot win a war. You just lost the fucking Taliban beat you. Listen, you invade a country, you bomb it to death, and you don't even speak their language. You don't even bother to speak their language. People don't understand the culture. That's not how you run a fucking empire. You haven't learned anything from the Persians. When they invaded the Babylonians, they went to the Babylonians and said, "You're not worshiping your god Marduk good enough. Here's money to build a fucking Marduk temple. And by the way, take the Hebrews out of there. Spend money on them building the second temple in Jerusalem. We're going to teach you what a great nation is within an empire." Americans never did that. The nation-building strategies of America are pathetic. That's where you fail and fail and fail all the time. That's why you lost in Vietnam, lost in Afghanistan. And the rest of the world is now terrified that Putin's going to take Ukraine just out of scare. Maybe he doesn't even want it. And then as soon as Xi Jinping has a crisis at home, all he will do is attack Taiwan, knowing Americans will not defend it. Because you don't have a dick.
Here's what I don't get. And we are going to get to the dick question because the theme of today is
regaining... Look at the comments.
Yes,
it's Lord Miles' big dick is the theme of the...
Exactly, Lord Miles' big dick. Exactly. And it's interesting because, Lord Miles, you are somebody who, even though you had your sexual encounters in the past, you have decided that this is not the path you want to go down, that you are going to have more of a... Christian, more of a holy way of being as far as not having any sex before marriage and instead reusing that energy for
vril
for exploration, adventure. Can you talk a little bit about how you are feeling now that you made your decision right now? And I'm curious what Alexander thinks of this particular path.
Oh, it's brilliant. I see my peers and honestly, they come dumpsters. It's pathetic. I look at my old university and I see girls with hundreds of partners, basically, or one-night stands, and they have huge depressive issues. They basically hate their lives, they're suicidal, they're alcoholic, nightmares to speak to. And then they wonder why their sexual marketplace has plummeted. It's kind of ironic. They don't really understand it. And if you even hint towards it in genuine conversation, they explode. They just can't realize it. So it doesn't make sense to them. With me, I've been tempted, of course. Like straight after Afghanistan, I had some OnlyFans models DM me, looking for clout, basically saying, "Oh, I'll sleep with you," blah blah blah, and I just told them to f off casually. And I think that was the best I ever made. Mostly because if the whole sexual marketplace has become so diluted to the point where sex doesn't matter anymore, and therefore is not valuable to me. So I don't see it as a thing I need to get straight away. I can wait, and at the same time, if I don't get married by a certain age, I'm just going to never get married. And if I do get married, I'm going to have 8 children and basically catch up for the last years. So good stuff.
Alexander, what do you think of this approach?
Oh, there's tons of tantric energy, but the tantric energy actually comes from not coming. So I agree half here with Lord Miles. I think your position, Miles, is perfectly okay and understandable. The tantric energy comes from not coming, and that's something I work with as well. And if you're going to do really good philosophy, we should think thoughts that you haven't thought anybody before. Otherwise, you're not a philosopher, and then formulate them. If you're going to do that kind of work, you have to go into long targeted sessions, so maybe 30 days or so, and then you get this. Yeah, I think periodically you learn to do it eventually. I'm like, if you're a Christian, I'm a Zoroastrian. We have gone down the path and found spirituality and religion to be incredibly rewarding. We're probably both deeply, deeply skeptical, the sort of cynical, nihilist, secular, atheist society we live in at the moment. We think it's doomed. I think we totally agree on that. My path, though, was to go further down through Judaism and Zoroastrianism rather than stay with Christianity, because I think Christianity has certain problems that it's got to be confronted with historically. Islam even more so. But that's more of a philosophical question if you want into that. I think my stance was that, yes, sexuality is never harmonious or balanced. It's always an incredibly powerful place to be in. I basically channel it through art. That's where I put sexuality and expose. So sexuality means to be inspiring. I mean, say you do a psychedelic retreat. It's a bit like sexuality. You have an intention for it. Why am I here? Why would I have sex with this woman, for example? Why would I do that? There has to be an intention. There has to be a reason why I should be here in the first place. Then there's the sexual act itself. And if you don't come as a man, it's even better. You're going to stay with him for 6 hours rather than 6 minutes. And I like that. You're probably going to stay with her rather than chasing around for other women. You're not going to use women as some kind of disposable things to throw away. Your sex life is going to be so much richer. Your life in general is going to be so much richer. But then you also need the integration. The integration is what follows the day after. Where does that lead? What was the point of the sexual act? And that's when sexuality can become meaningful. Always a wild beast to ride. I would say, though, I admire guys who can stay off sex entirely, and monks do all the time. Military men certainly do, long periods too. I don't think it's a permanent solution at all, but I think it refreshes your mind just by staying in celibacy for quite a while and then look at the world with much clearer eyes. So that's why I think Miles and I agree.
Miles, a response for that?
Well, it's very true, though. I mean, it's like when it comes to other things like fasting, it does clear your mind. If you abstain from certain desires, bodily desires, such as fasting or even alcohol or smoking or anything in general, it does clear your mind and actually enhance your brain in general. It's also some philosophical nonsense. It's actually hard science at the same time, paired with philosophy that goes back eons. Everyone said if you abstain from certain things, it does enhance you. And that's why I think today's society is so screwed, because you've got an abundance of everything. Everyone's seen that meme where it says, tough times create good times, and good times create weak men, and so on. And I think we're definitely in the weak men section of things. And that's why you've got people not dying in wars, and weak philosophies, and weak nations, and a lack of meaning of the world. And that's why everyone's so depressed in general. And I think that's why I'm so happy.
This is why incels will be the true aristocracy in the future. No, I'm well.
But it is funny though. Speaking of incels, that as far as I know, fewer millennials and Gen Zers are having actual sex.
This is the total opposite. The incel is a self-appointed victim. I'm talking with Lord Miles here about being heroic in your celibacy.
Well,
And being heroic in your celibacy is entirely different.
The incels, they lie in self-pity and go, "Oh, woe me! I can't take life by the horns. Everything's destroying me. I'm a victim of society." And you just can't laugh at people because they actually think that society is meant to carry them.
Well, it is true. I think that when it comes, particularly the incel question, I wanted to get back to what we were talking about before. That actually, Lev, to your shock and horror. There are certain white nationalists on certain Telegram groups. One of them happens to work for a certain podcast network that says that actually they're spreading this clip of a rabbi that is saying that the certain people are actually benefited by Putin being in power. So a lot of white nats are sort of dropping the neo-Duganism, I think. Anyways, about the incels.
No, it is true, and I could tell you why. Because Putin is very superstitious, and he thinks that they all have magical powers. That's why.
Well, I mean, that could be true. I mean, we don't know. Lev, do you have the sack? I don't see the chain for the gold sack.
No, I have a tensor ring, but that's a different.
Yeah,
that's
I thought you all had to have the baggie. It's like one. No, that was the South Park thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But about the incel, I think it is quite interesting how, at a time when we're inundated with sexuality. I mean, this is an older point. This is like ancient, manosphere stuff. But at a time when we're sort of inundated with like the cheapness of sexuality, at the same time, people are having like less physical intimacy than ever. But the incel is sort of like a weird creature where you don't necessarily have the benefits of someone who has taken on a monastic sort of asceticism. It's still like largely, I think, a product of resentment. But if there was an ability, I think, a strategy to say like, okay, maybe it's not advantageous for most young men to be caught up in this sort of downward spiral. But at the same time, I mean, if you really do accept the black pill of like certain manosphere discourse, which I think people are starting to see as kind of ridiculous, what is there to do? Should there be a sort of a rebirth of asceticism that younger men in particular?
Wait. Yeah. This is a good thread. Okay. When the incel doesn't get fucked, and he's resentful and bitter about it, and then pretends that he's chosen celibacy. That's the pillar thing. That is the worst guy of them all. That's the guy who walks out of the village and he's too good to be sexual, and he sits on his pillar outside and starts declaring the Gnostic truth. Gnosticism, Zoroastrians hate Gnostics. Mastak, who was the inspired Islam, Mani, who inspired Augustine, to all the bad things with Christianity. The Gnostic is always, no, I'm too good for sexuality. In reality, no, you didn't get fucked. You went to the fucking school dance when you were 14. And you were turned down by all the girls because you were disgusting and they didn't want you. Because they wanted somebody better than you. And you don't admit that. And that's the guy. In that way, it's better the incels at least are honest about their incelity, or whatever we want to call it. Because when the incel then switches and pretends, not Lord mindset, and pretends that he's chosen the celibacy because he is superior, that's when it gets dangerous. And that's the sort of thing to watch out for. The Catholic Church has raped boys for 2,000 years. Let's admit that. There's something really going on here. Right?
Here we go, Lord Miles.
That sounds like the fat acceptance movement. Every person who's pro-fatness was once a person looking to get fit, and then they got disheartened and kind of created a whole ideology beyond actually, going around the goal that we wanted. It's the same thing, really. Same thing with incels. It's pretty funny to see as well. These incels, they dive into huge ideological pipelines. Most of them kind of get obsessed with studying Rome and go down this. That's what we can see.
No, but I sorry.
No goal to Christian Rome.
But to give the devil his due, you would say though that as far as comparing the incels to the normies, to the people who right now are occupying various jobs in New York City, let's say, the incels would at least still be aware of certain things that the normies just it gets blocked out of their mind. They're not even that conscious of a lot of different things that are going on right now. What I don't know is how much of a truth do we have with the framework of the incel when it comes to the doom and gloom aspect, when it comes to whether we are headed into this Klaus Schwab great reset, eat the bugs and live in the pod thing, because I think the incels see themselves as already living in that pod to a certain extent.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, so if you constantly think happy thoughts, at the end of the day, you end up happy, and that's how I got out of the certain ruts at the same time. But if you're depressed and everything, you go play sad music through your headphones, and you go wear black and hang out with those types of people in communities, and then you go down the rabbit hole because that's the internet at the end of the day, which is exemplified every single ideology that's plaguing young men nowadays. So I generally think these people have created their own little hell on earth, and they have convinced themselves that they're stuck in it without actually trying to do anything. Because if they step out of it and actually try to fix themselves, then they realize they've wasted years and they were wrong, which is the worst thing to admit for these people.
And you can look at the Islamic world to see what then happens, because this is, of course, the recruitment for all the guys who bonds on themselves in the Islamic fundamentalism. It's just that they had tons of insults because they locked up the girls. There were a few guys that got a lot of women. A lot of men did not get any women at all, but they were still convinced to leave the countryside and become urbanized, get an education. For example, Tunisia is full of these guys who got an engineering degree. Because finance doesn't work in the country, you cannot start up a business because the bureaucracy is humongous. They get unemployed. And an unemployed engineer in Tunisia does not care. He doesn't get pussy. Perfect recruitment for Islamic fundamentalism. We're going to see the same thing here. I think America, Russia, and Europe are all pro now. You see a lot of these incel guys being told that they're victims, and the way they do the revenge is becoming fundamentalists to any cause. It doesn't matter how mad or strange or weird it is. I've talked about it a lot the last 10 years. I call it the golden age of sects and cults. And that's where the incels are going to go. So since that energy isn't being taken care of by the current system at all, it's going to explode somewhere else. And these guys are, of course, inclined to believe just about anything. After all, if you take astrology and add a few testosterone to it, you get conspiracy theories. They're not that different. It's just the pattern is the trigger. So the intrigue becomes the strategy. And these guys are then willing to believe anything that at least, relieves some of the pain they're suffering from, and go on killing themselves in one way of doing it, because you get a little key from Islam and you go to heaven. You don't really believe in, but at least it's something more honorable just sitting there jerking off the porn all day.
Based chaos maxing. That will be the future. 100% agree.
Makes me think how many of those people are
Why
watching...
do you think I'm best friends with Nick Land for? I mean, come on.
And it makes me
Did
think
you
how many
convince
of the
Nick to
people...
come on the podcast, Alexander?
Oh.
No, I've been asked to ask Nick so many times now, and he says no, and I don't know what kind of Russian roulette is going to take for him to say yes to somebody all of a sudden.
I know.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah. But I was just about to say...
Rarely he has, but that's...
I was just about to say, how many people who may go into that path are currently watching Break the Rules right now, and I'm looking at them at this moment?
That's 90% of our audience.
Exactly.
Right there.
Because that is an interesting thing, right? Where we are in the belly of the beast of people who are very dissatisfied and do have things to work on in their life, which is, again, why I'm always the bad cop here, Gio. Why I'm always poking and criticizing at various negative aspects that I see, because there's nobody else to say otherwise within the hug box. But back to what we were talking about earlier, though.
No, but I do.
Yeah.
It is a valid point, though. I mean, the fact that, I truly think that there will be an age of insanity that's upon us. I think that people are starting to snap. Even in my own country, I can't believe it. I mean, sort of restored my faith as a Canadian a little bit, the convoy. But I think that maybe people, I mean, for example, Miles, you could probably be a model for us, like we've talked about this, a sort of alternative route of going through those depths of despair and poverty and being deluged by a ham-sliced pussy, and coming out with that as someone who is trying to become a man of action. But I think that for the vast majority, there was this very, very old My Posting Career a forum post where it said, like, well, you people that are reactionaries, if you had a strong man, you're not going to be some kind of like a voivod of some province somewhere. You're going to actually your follower instinct will kick in, and you will Heil Putler, whoever's going to come down the pipe that is similar to Putler. But I think that it is true in a sense. The people that are gravitating towards these ideas, obviously, but it's funny that, Alexander, you said that various ideologies, because people don't talk about this. There's quite a bit of incels on the political left as well. Just they mediate it through different channels. They have different connotations.
They're called sneaky fuckers. They're called sneaky fuckers. So they stick with the girls and say whatever the girls want to hear. Maybe they can get laid, right? So, and they're despised.
No feminist. Yeah.
They call themselves feminists. I mean, if you're a man, you call yourself a masculinist, of course. You're not a feminist. You cannot be a feminist per definition, right?
Yeah.
Except if you hate yourself, right? So,
I knew.
Lord Miles, about you though. I want to hear more about Miles, about story, where Miles is at, and how Miles sees himself. Right. Are you the older brother of a whole bunch of guys stepping forward who can be something really powerful? Could you be netocratic, as I call it? Could you be one of the power brokers of the new digital age who loves the mess we're in right now? Because, the netocrats today, they just take a laptop and move whatever they like. And if they move to Dubai, which is run by a sheikh as a dictatorship, and you ask them, why are you here? They say, well, my democracy is that I just move. If I don't get the deal from the sheikh of Dubai, then I just move to Singapore or move to some other city-state somewhere where I can do what I like. I worked in Rwanda. Rwanda has now been constructed as a dictatorship that works. It's like a fascist Switzerland in the middle of Africa, and it works.
Oh my God, really?
Africans can be fantastic fascists. That's news for you guys? I'll tell you what, they can. Fine, I'm totally fine with that, because you can always leave Rwanda. You can just take your laptop with you and move somewhere else. Now, that's the netocracy. And in this sense, is Miles a real netocrat? And would you define yourself at that? Don't you take your laptop with you, go somewhere else to get what you want? And in that case, can you be a role model for younger brothers who look up?
I hope so, but at the same time, I worry that I can't relate to a lot of people, because at the end of the day, I don't have a family. And I feel like that's the one thing that's tying people down. A lot of people are born, say, a single mother or a father or a whole complete family. But at the end of the day, that's the thing that actually keeps them grounded in a certain geographical region. And for me, I'm free to travel and explore and delve into danger, because I've got nothing tying me down because of a no family. So I feel like I can become an escape for some people, where they see my trips and they're amazed by the dangers taken and so on, and it actually is working out. But when they go to do it themselves, they kind of realize and hesitate, because now they have something to worry about. But with me, there's nothing. So I'm not too sure if it can evolve something that I can stand for.
Isn't that a disaster for a man today, that it cannot raise a family, allow the family to stay wherever the family is located, while he can still travel and pursue his life? I mean, military men have always done that. Monks certainly do that, except for the Christian tradition. Monks have families. I work with Sufi monks. They have families and kids. They just leave the family where it's at, because the woman or the mother of the children is perfectly located within a community where other women, especially women, take care of the children together. I think the nuclear family is the disaster here, because the nuclear family forces you to stop traveling the day you want to raise the family you want to raise. I think that is a disaster. I think your war has to be against the nuclear family idea, towards a stronger, larger, greater family. And why should you marry a woman unless you first find that? And probably not in your own home culture. You probably have to go to culture where, at least still, for example, in India, you still can self-arrange a marriage with a woman, and she can be totally solid where she's at, and she loves her husband to be out traveling around the world, exploring the world. That's what men used to do. Why was that lost?
It's true.
One thing that was lost too is one family living only for one roof through several generations. That was an amazing support structure of wisdom.
Yeah.
And, support in general.
I grew up with nannies, right? My background is South African Scandinavian. So South African farmers breeding with Scandinavian missionaries. Huge family, 5 kids. But our mother gave birth to the kids, and off she went, and adopted kids, and off she went, had her career, because we had nannies. I had tons of them. I mean, I'm totally secure of women, because I had nannies everywhere when I grew up, who kissed me whatever I did, and applauded whatever I did. So at least I wanted to be grown up and desperately to get out of that. But that was a big family with love. And we were freaks in Scandinavia, right? Because we were size in Scandinavia in the 1970s. When the older, greater families are torn apart and replaced by these sort of tiny little models of urban nuclear families, where the father is supposed to stay at home with the kids for 20 years when the kids are being born. I think tying a man down to the world, tying a man down to his family like that, it's not family at all. It's just the death of a man.
There is a negative side.
I think you solved
Go on, Joe.
I think really quickly that I think Bard solved a very pertinent divide between the Christians online and the Bronze Age pervert people. That could be like a mediation where you have a trad family, but you get to go on and become a step warrior explorer. I think that was sort of like the mediation, because women had a form of autonomy back then that I think a lot of like online trads, especially, they discredit the amount that women did have in terms of their ability to control a household and to form a community when the men are off, hunting bison or something of that, or
Well,
exploring
you,
other
you, you
stuff.
can you can do this in Dubai or Singapore today. So if you want to be an autocrat, Miles, you have to make tons of money, be financially independent. And you can marry incredibly attractive women who love large families, nannies around, while your wife has her career. That's how they live in Dubai and Singapore. Large families. Either you pay family members or you have them. Because what these women often do, say an Iranian beautiful woman who lives in Dubai, she's a real estate agent, she has a career, she wants a Western husband because he's tired of Western women and feminism. And they marry and live in Dubai, and she makes tons of money of her own. She's perfectly happy. She wants the nannies. And then she brings her grandmother over from Iran to live with you in the house. I think when I toured India 3 years ago, I sat down with the students. I'm a guru in India. So you sit down with the students around you, it's outside the universities, and you talk about all kinds of philosophical things. And one of the questions is, since we're now falling into digital age after America and Europe, what can we learn? Good question. First thing is, don't go for Tinder. It will destroy India. Don't go for Tinder. Okay. No, why don't you come up with a new idea to be self-arranged marriage? Because the arranged marriage has enormous advantages. One of them is that the marriages are kept. They don't divorce. Why? Because they weren't romantically engaged. You didn't believe the romanticism would last. Even in Europe, when Romeo and Juliet was set up by Shakespeare, it was a comedy. People laughed their heads off at these stupid idiots called Romeo and Juliet. It only became a tragedy in the late 19th century when romantic love replaced God in Western culture with the disasters result today. If you get the romantic love out of it, if you look at marriage as a fantastic institution where love grows over the years between a man and woman who run a fucking empire together.
Exactly.
That's family. And I think the Indians are sticking with that. I think self-arranged marriage is the next thing coming from India, meaning a lot of Western men should actually go to Asia, like Nick Land and John Hutton, find your wife there, live that kind of life, because you're not going to get it in America and Europe.
Aryan fusion. Exactly.
But I wanna put a word of caution over here, because when it comes to the destruction of the nuclear family, while I could see a positive aspect what you guys were talking about, there is also the other aspect of people like the leftists, like I think Melissa Harris Perry, or I don't remember their names, talking about how the parents don't own the kids. And really, the kids should be taken care of by this community. But when they say community, they mean a more leftist-oriented community.
Because they killed the family first. That's precisely the point. No, family owns child, period. If family wants to kill child, family owns child, period. I mean, any functioning culture, long-term functioning culture, has a large sense of family. Actually, biologically speaking, if you look at data anthropology, you do your Peter. Family usually has the size of 40 people.
Oh, but by the way, Alexander,
clan is 150, tribe is 1,200, family is 40 people. And if it's 40 people and not 4, then that means the nuclear family is doomed. Okay, look at the history of the nuclear family. It was invented in 1813 by a Prussian bureaucrat who only looked at productive results of people being frustrated. It was not created as an idea by anybody who wanted people to be happy or content with anything. He basically saw that the farming culture of Prussia must be crushed. The villages must be crushed. And therefore, they created farms with one man, one woman, child. One man, one woman, child, each farm, meaning you could only get out of the house by marrying a woman and then having a new property, new farm. And therefore, productivity in farming increased rapidly. And everybody assumed because productivity increased rapidly, they must be happy. No, the nuclear family was designed to only increase productivity, have kids sent off the factories and cities. Then we introduced mandatory education, teach kids to read and write, they can become factory workers, because they bred so quickly in the countryside, and people were so frustrated, the people left the countryside. That's how Europeans, at least, and probably Americans, learned to hate the countryside.
Interesting. Alexander,
Alexander,
people have been pointing out, and this is true, that your microphone goes out sometimes. It may be the position of the mic. I'm not sure what exactly that may be. Yeah, well, it's all right. I mean, I'm still able to hear you, so everything's cool. But Lord Miles, do you think then maybe an arranged marriage is something in the future for you, or starting up your own colony somewhere with maybe multiple wives like the Mormons?
I think this is better. I think StreamYard has internal microphone as default setting, but it's the external microphone is assumed setting. So I just changed.
This is way better.
Much better.
There you go. Thank you, fans and clients out there for reminding us. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I think, no, unironically, I mean, people think like Western, decadent people, they think it's monstrous. But an arranged marriage, I mean, if you can like sort of negate the negative aspects of like, well, women are chattel, blah, 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 that I think it probably could work in some capacity,
Of course it does. The Parsis of India taught me that. These beautiful women walk up to me when I was in India touring and said, would you like to get married with me? I was just like, wow. She's like, but you can sleep with anything you like. So will I. You're a king and a queen. You can have slaves and suck your dick or whatever. Doesn't matter. No, I'm talking about marriage here. I'm talking about having children together and building an empire together and having a great last name and running a bank. All right. Okay, now I get what marriage really is. Now I get what has been lost about marriage in the West. I mean, that's marriage. That's what marriage should be. I'm totally for arranged marriage, but why not self-arrange them in that case, or at least involve everybody who's concerned? I think Midas would like that. I think he would love to have a last say on who he marries and not have a father who just tells him to marry. But I mean, that's the parody of marriage. I think the self-arranged marriage. In the day you do marriage, and we're guys here, you're going to run a corporation with a woman. You better see it as a corporation from day one. It's not about romanticism at all. The idea that romantic love can keep a marriage together lasts for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's over.
Shit.
As soon as you change the diapers, it's dead.
Nuclear red
Sweden.
pill.
That's Sweden. Sweden is going towards a 100% divorce rate. Even second marriage. Yeah. But they don't know what it is. They don't know what they're doing, right?
But does that also talk about that most people who say, I want to be an artist, I want to be creative, that most people are just propagandized by whatever environment they happen to be in and go into positions not because they're actually good at it, but because this is just something that they've been raised with. And that
God, I want to be artistic, I want to be creative. Is an 11-year-old still waiting for his mother to applaud him when he makes little performances? Okay. You leave that. Okay. When you become sexual, which even Lord Miles with his big dick undoubtedly is, right? So when you become sexual... Oh, don't downplay it, Lord. Don't do that. Okay, whatever. When you become sexual, you stop trying to please your mom, and instead you try to make a woman satisfied. That means you must stop trying to get applause, and that means that all these people who call themselves creative and whatever out there today, the kids, and all they do is mimic each other, and then they wonder why nobody cares about the really mediocre, sloppy shit that they put out. Nick Land calls these the enormous mediocrity. And it starts after 1945, and with the internet, it has exploded. We're just drenched in mediocre junk day and night.
It's true.
From these creative people who are not creative at all. It's like Richard Florida called it the creative class. No, come on. It's just pink color or whatever you want to call it.
Well, real quick, Jordan Peterson.
As soon as I have sex with a woman, all of my artistic talent will just pour out of me.
Like
screaming rats.
It's like that from Annie Hall when Woody Allen's character said, like Balzac always says, there goes another novel, right before he was going to have sex. But back to Jordan Peterson, who we did not speak about yet, so not back to him.
Well, we didn't get
anyway.
Lord Miles' opinion on arranged marriage.
Well, real quick, I want to ask Alexander Bard about this thing that Jordan Peterson said regarding creativity, where he was talking about how a lot of these SJW purple-haired people who we see today, that this is something that existed before as far as tattoos and piercings, and this was always the creative class, and the reason why they can't choose a specific gender, why they're non-binary and things like that, is because they're creatively exploring this, and this is not something that most normal people are able to do. I don't know.
They're so fucking normal today.
Yeah.
They're nothing but normal. Having 4 hair colors and looking like schizophrenic is standard looks today. It's just boring. It's like H&M are bored with it. It's just boring, right? Now, they are not creative at all. Okay, I worked in the music industry. We got 1,000 demo tapes every week from people who thought they were rock stars. We put them in a big potato bag at the end of the office. And the first thing you had to do if you were 14 years old and you came as an intern was that you had to listen to all that crap and send them a little note back. Don't call us, we call you. And send it automatically to everybody, by the way, because nobody ever came out of that potato bag and got a recording contract. Wow. Nobody.
Yeah.
And this is why we're drenched in an Instagram full of scrolling, junk shit. No talent whatsoever. Art has to come from somewhere entirely different to be alive again. These are the 3 narratives that Söder Krishna write about. The logos of the mythos and the pathos. And the pathos is what's hidden. The pathos is the kind of narrative you don't want children to see. Pornography, warfare, snuff movies, all the real dirt out there. Because art has to come from there. Because if art comes from somewhere else, it's just fake and decorations. It's not art. That's art. That's real art. Like religion has to be real. Art has to be real. And that means it has to come from the pathical space. And when society today is constructed only through the female mythos and the masculine logos, and it pretends to be logos and mythos, it's only a little boy who tries to charm his mother in absolutely everything you do. I think Jordan Peterson was great in the beginning when he gave his Nietzsche lectures and his Jung lectures and his Freud lectures, and everybody fell in love with him. But I think the guy who came back from the rock star thing and took drugs in Serbia, whatever happened, has gone into the regular mythos, logos, mythos realm where he tries to please whatever is there in front of him. And, the gusto is gone because he forgot about the pathos, which he apparently didn't have. He married his childhood sweetheart. He never went rampage. He wasn't a rock star. He was just a nerd who happened to like rock stars, but then he thought the nerd was the rock star, and that was the big mistake.
What about somebody
it's like Moldbug right there?
Well, what about somebody like Joe Rogan, for instance? Right now, Joe Rogan seems to be acting this rock star role as far as opposing the system. What do you see in Rogan? And that's for both of you as well.
No, I think Rogan is pathos light, but he's basically just being the guy who is himself, who asks questions that he would ask. Like, is he interested? Then he asks that question. And the natural presence of Rogan has turned him into a Spotify podcast star, but he only opens up the space for something new to materials after that. That has to be much more potent. But I mean, right now, yeah.
How come you haven't been on Rogan, Alexander?
My friends are on Rogan these days. I'm not there yet, and I'm perfectly happy to wait. To be honest about it. Yeah,
you seem like I want you and Sam Hyde.
I was on the Stoa today, and the Stoa is usually the class is sort of waiting room. You do the jazz before you make your pop record at the Rogan. Yeah.
And as far as you mentioned Sam Hyde, do you think that he would be as popular among the 4chan crowd or among any edgy crowd if not for certain, anti-Semitic things? Like, no, I'm curious. No, I know the answer is yes. But the reason why I say that, Alexander, is I think today, because of the way that the environment is, a lot of the things that would be the most tasteless, the most, let's say, gross as far as, praising Nazis and things like that. That's the spiciest and edgiest that could possibly be.
No, the spicy, edgy, quote-unquote, anti-Semitism, that came much later. If you look at the original MDE, they hinted towards a right-wing Politico, but it wasn't explicit until, I would say, by the time they got to World Peace. Then Sam went in a much more political direction after 2016. But the original MD was more surrealist. It wasn't as politically
Yeah, but how many
motivated,
people knew about it? How many people knew about it back then as opposed to knew about it once they got those images of Sam Hyde with the gun on 4chan and proceeded further from that? Do you see my point?
Well, the memes, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying
memes, that's where the power lies. So I'm curious, Alexander.
This is comic strip for boys. And hey, hello. Anti-Semitism is so banal, it's incredible. I mean, right now, you got the Jacobin woke people in front of you. You can just start shooting them if you want to shoot somebody. Kill them all. I mean...
on Minecraft.
Anti-Semitism is not so predictable these days. It's certainly going to happen. And like I always tell my Jewish friends in Europe, I said, the next time around, it's not going to be a brown shirt. It's going to be a green blouse. Watch out for Greta Thunberg. Okay, so what's going to happen is that anti-Semitism is going to be both the Jews caused climate change, and it's going to be the Jews invented climate change, and it's a hoax. You can attack Jews from both sides, and that's when anti-Semitism explodes. It's so obvious that it's going to happen. There's nothing radical about that at all right now. But right now, we need to get the Jacobins out of the way, and, for example, kill the nuclear family. So why don't you attack those things? Because then you're truly controversial, and people are going to go after you, and you're going to get banned everywhere. But if you really want to be canceled or whatever you want to be, it's the easiest thing in the world today. Just don't do anti-Semitism again. Please, come up with something at least slightly different.
Well, no, right? But then the problem is I know in right-wing spaces, if you're not explicitly for Hitler and violence, then it's then you're a cuck, so I don't know, you're kind of a fake cell.
Well, it seems to be the forbidden fruit because of how censored it appears to be online, even though there are a lot of...
Yeah, because your mom got upset, okay? It's nothing more to it than that your mom got upset. You're 11 years old, if that's how you become controversial. And that spreads on 4chan. 4chan is a boys' channel. I mean, hey, that's not where shit happens. That's not where people create huge new empires, corporations, and banks and things. I mean, I work with the crypto guys. I work with hackers. Of course, they're happening. They're not 4chan any longer. That's just the kids' place.
But a lot of the memes that
don't know.
originated from 4chan, they end up then going to the Elon Musks of the world. There is still something that's fermenting in there that people do end up grabbing onto.
What do you think, Lord Miles?
Yeah.
I have a theory that if every single social media had the same openness and non-restrictions as 4chan, that the entire world would turn into 1940s Germany within 5 years. I see it happening because I see these people, they go on 4chan for a few days.
True.
Yeah, they go down this huge route and everything makes sense to them, and they become the homeless schizos preaching that Zionists are destroying blah, 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 and so on. I feel like every single social media has become such a safe place that I honestly believe if they knock down the walls of content filters and such, everyone would be radicalized in a different direction.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, in the early days of Twitter, where people like Matt Forney used to call journalists F-slurs, and it was just in the open. They didn't ban you back in the day. If that came, and then of course 2016 was the big threshold, which we will be talking about, by the way, this Thursday on our Gamergate panel.
Yes.
But no, I think that it is interesting how I am noticing there's a smarter breed of anti-Semite poster that's sort of like not of the typical like alt-right 1.1. I mean, a lot of those guys are irrelevant
yet they still don't want to come on Break the Rules. You know who I'm talking about, right, Gio?
Oh, who?
The Irish guy.
Oh, well, I don't know. I would consider a smarter breed than the average, like, you know, guy posting on Countercurrents forum or whatever. I don't know. I think that in some ways a lot of the tropes, they've remained true, but at the same time, I mean, internet censorship is wild in one sense, in that it is like a giant Skinner box in a sense, where you can sort of put people within their little groups. Like Alexander was saying, 4chan's the boys club. It's like the naughty boys that can't get along with people, the misfits, the misfits and refuse. But at the same time, I think that I truly believe it's that, especially after Gamergate, there was a sense in which there were forces above us that were consciously placing. 8chan was the best example. There are people that claim that 8chan was a giant Skinner box, in the sense of like placing certain groups in a containment field. I think Telegram is another problem in that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Telegram, but I think that a bunch of schizos posting about the Jews in a Telegram group is sort of like not very effective in the long term, in the sense that it's become that, like, you know, all the crazy right-wing people go to Telegram. Here you go. And I think that's even more of a powerful thing than just like outright censorship in some ways.
Well, Telegram's been backdoored anyway, so it's not exactly safe talking.
But
just ask me how I know.
But how
Signal is better. Yeah, Signal is absolutely better. Yeah.
But what has?
But I want to go. I want to go back to Lord Miles. I want to go back to Lord Miles. I want to go back to thinking Lord Miles as an older brother teaching his younger brothers what it is to be Lord Miles. So you could be like a role model thing. I mean, I want to go back to that point. What has your last year been like? Tell us. You came from Kazakhstan. You came from Kazakhstan before you came here, right?
And Africa.
Yes, before was Kazakhstan. Before that was Uganda. Then before that, South Sudan, I believe, and so on. Then Afghanistan. And my next big trip, I believe, it's going to be some next level stuff, which is happening in 2 weeks, let's say. So that's going to blow up. I think it'll be bigger than first Afghanistan trip, if you get my drift.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What drives you?
Drives me? I don't actually know. I think just fun at the end of the day. There's always some good moral spin that can come to it, and I do some good work along the travels. But at the end of the day, if I just sit at home for more than 5 minutes at my desk, I get absolutely bored. It's pathetic. I kind of just lie there and I want to hop from one thing to another, and maybe a little bit erratic, but at the end of the day, I want to be sitting on my deathbed and looking back and either be surrounded by a family or not, and actually say, well, I don't regret that, because I think that would be the worst feeling, you know, just realizing your life is ending, there's nothing you can do about it, and then the immense regret of certain decisions. And whenever I come to a path of making a decision between going to Kazakhstan and, say, risking my life climbing through mountains or sneaking into the country, and going home and doing the dishes, it's definitely Kazakhstan at the end of the day.
I think we're similar there. What I did was that I had a relationship for 24 years, the man-woman thing, right? But I live with guys. But I didn't have to do the family thing that you seem to be. You have to do. It's like, I don't know what kind of background you come from. If it's a broken family, you want to do the family right, because we have to do the family right. I was born into the family being right, to be honest about it. I was very fortunate. So I have 4 siblings who all had kids and family, and I'm a great uncle, nasty uncle. They come to me for the sex and the drugs. So I love my nieces, but I didn't have to. And therefore I live with guys. And that's why I got into contact with Sufi monks and realized that they could both raise families in the cultures if they had to or wanted to, but they traveled around the world. Often an older and a younger man traveled around the world, and they did all these things you talk about. And I think we're finally now getting into something here of a culture where you can temporarily do that in your life, which you clearly are. You dream of raising a family somewhere in the world. I recommend you to go to Dubai, you meet an Iranian woman or something, or a Zoroastrian in India if you're lucky, because that's probably what you're looking for. But I would say that there's also the possibility to stay in that monkhood and stay with that and live that life. And that's what I decided to do. I've done my entire life. I've traveled everywhere. I've been everywhere. I've seen every culture. I've learned languages. And that's why I started doing philosophy. I realized the Europeans are embarrassing. They start with the Greeks. Philosophy didn't start with the Greeks. It's bullshit. Okay, philosophy will have to be rewritten. Fantastic. I'm part of that. And that's what got me inspired from 30 years ago to make the lifestyle decisions that I made. But I'm very careful not to be a role model for men who are not me. I'm very careful to teach guys that don't copy me, don't mimic me. I'm very shamanic. I'm incredibly weird. I'm out there. I'm built to be that way. I'm psychologically built to be that way. My psyche is strong. I can handle those environments. And that's why I'm doing that kind of shamanic work, which led me to become a philosopher. But I would say, in your case, the question is, do you see yourself as temporarily living as a global monk, which you are right now? Or do you to then become a father and raise a family, which means our current society would force you to stay in a geographical location with that family? Or could you imagine maybe raising the family if you have to and still be this sort of global monk?
I can see myself traveling quite a bit, to put it lightly, but at the end of the day, I do want to become stable financially. So if I was to raise a family, I would. My plan is, because I come from a background working in investment banking, I know investing at an early age is a big thing that you should do. So what I really want to do is actually have a regular job, constantly invest, and then look after my child and have them situated in one place so they can actually build friends and family and everything with me and with the school, because I'm going to be homeschooling, maybe the community. And I think jumping around will be quite bad for them. But I think if I have kids and they get older, I think it'll be quite good to mix the 2 lifestyles where, let's say, for 1 year they can travel around to a different nation, explore and evolve the way I have. And maybe they can travel to different regions and do different things, and I can just help them with that. I can constantly build up their exposure from an early age, and I think I can kind of meld the 2 worlds together. But I can never travel solely with just a family and then hope for the best. I don't think I can have the best of both worlds, because at the end of the day, I look at it and that'll be the perfect situation. And if it's a perfect situation, I know it's not realistic and not possible.
I know families who do travel and do the homeschooling, and that's why they travel. So there are families like that. But it takes a gutsy mom and things like that. But there's a lot of families who do that. I find it incredibly interesting. You're definitely a netocrat. You're born to be a netocrat.
Thank you. Or maybe
you are what I write books about. You really are. That's why I'm here today.
You're going to be like Dalrymple writing travel books. I think that's, yeah.
No, don't do coffee table books. Don't do anything that needs to be printed. Stay online. Yeah. Don't do anything that's printed. When it's printed, it's dead these days. It's just coffee table books are the end of literature. Yeah.
Oh, that is true. But I think for men could probably do it in a richer and rewarding way. I hate to say it, I hate to be sexist, but I think that do you know that one YouTube channel, Soft White Underbelly, where they interview like homeless crackheads and prostitutes and so forth? There was this one woman, I think her name, this French girl, that was like, basically a prostitute, right? And she traveled the world and she went different places, and it's like, in a way, she has that cool girl French vibe, right? But in a way, when you think of it, when you look at an older woman who has done these traveling and so forth, especially in that industry, it's sort of like, not that it comes off as pathetic, but it comes off as like, I don't know, compared to a man who is an explorer, it just doesn't feel very natural. I don't
bullshit.
I don't know.
The shamanic caste, with proven through data anthropology, is 4% of the population. The androgynous are another 4%. 92% are regular Joes and Joes, right? The 4% of the population shamanic are equally feminine and masculine, equal men and women. So you just have experience of women who are traveling all the time. Women are perfectly comfortable traveling all the time when that's part of their archetype. And
no, but
usually,
women, they travel
it
as
just
tumor.
It just depends on the style of traveling and the type of women. I feel like there's a certain breed of women where they just travel to not Airbnb, what's it called? To hostel, sleeping around with random guys.
I know women like that.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. Lord Miles, I'm talking about that. Lord Miles, listen to me now. I'm talking about saving you from returning to London to marry an Essex wife, and instead go to fucking Dubai and get a half Iranian, half Indian, sexy woman who has her own career and has long nails and high shoes and nannies and things, and you must then pay her bills. Right? That's the family you should raise, rather than having an Essex wife in London. Right?
I wouldn't never go to Essex in the first place. It seems a bit dangerous.
You ever seen those? The British women have fell from grace. I don't know why, but like you see, like they had the 90s term was the pramp phase, but you see them strewing across the street, piss and puke all over themselves at nighttime. It's just on those fumbly dresses. Oh my God! What
are you talking about? England here?
Women? Well,
it's the same with English men, so they know better.
Yeah, I know. It's the townies.
It's called
right?
binge drinking. There you go.
The council houses. But Miles, what happened to the British women in particular? That they seem to be even more lost than American or Canadian women.
I think if you look at when Rome first went to England, basically, and talked about English people, they said they were completely uneducated. They can't be taught to read and write, stuff like that. I kind of think there must be some truth there at the end of the day. I think England has just become a little bit of a puppet America culturally at the end of the day. There's no unique identity or anything. They've just gone to their universities, seen that you should indulge in all these sexual and partying lifestyles, and then they get lost in the whole thing, and none of these people are independent enough to think for themselves, whereas the Europeans are a little bit more sophisticated. If you go more east, you come across the Ukrainians that are a little bit more I would say open-minded to different ways of life, and they've actually become wildly successful because of that. And I would say as well, it's the comfort of being British, that the lifestyle isn't too harsh, and families have become more weak and everything, and they've become more, I would say, feminine at the end of the day. And that's why you've got weak fathers who have basically sent their daughters to university to get fucked by 10 to 15 guys and get an art degree so they can discover themselves or work in the Starbucks in 5 years, and then have a dysfunctional marriage with 2 children and get a divorce at the age of 40 to become a cat lady. It's just a path every British woman takes, I've noticed. And it's very rare.
I have a theory on this.
Oh, yeah.
Look at 1945. Okay, Churchill won the war and still lost the election. Okay.
Yeah.
If you were a British man in the colonies somewhere, you were in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, wherever, you would have stayed. You wouldn't go home, would you? I think that's what happened after 1945. I think the feminization of Britain started after 1945 because when Britain lost the empire, a lot of people basically migrated. And the people who migrated the most between 1945 and 1948 were men.
So basically a brain drain.
They came back, they won the war, they weren't appreciated, and they went to the colonies. And that, I think, I find it interesting to look 100 years later what kind of a feminine culture Britain has become. And this is what Scandinavians have then idolized. So Scandinavia has the problem with its own Americanization. It's gone through Britain, come here. And basically Sweden today is America run by the Democratic Party as a dictatorship. It's like they still try to defend the Bidenism seen out every day in Swedish newspapers. And that's why it's a great place to be, because
God, I can fight. I cannot struggle to say I can fight as much as I like. Because it's a completely insane place to be.
That's like Canada. We're basically Oregon, the country.
Well, I'm surprised they haven't sent you to the gulag yet, Alexander. Why do you think that is? Are they about to?
They're too weak to even have a gulag. It's just like we were the only ones who didn't wear face masks during COVID-19. We didn't even wear the face mask. It turned out it didn't make a difference. And now they're trying to turn that into victory story, which is kind of nice because the face masks were, of course, just false security and they didn't do anything. It's just like they were just complete fake, right? It's just I find that interesting with a place like this that it's so experimental. Sweden is like the social experimental workshop of the world, where the nuclear family and everything has gone all the way to the absolute bottom, which is also why dialectically has to be the place where something new will appear. But it's not going to be Greta Thunberg. I wrote her mother's songs. I know the family. I want her out of the way. Because to me, Greta Thunberg is the first of the green Nazis. Right? Green Nazis.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Do you think, Alexander, that now that Sweden for years was lambasted as the quintessential American Canadian Prague utopia, where Assange called it the Saudi Arabia of feminism, and they have pink parking spaces and so forth. Do you think that this is going to change? That they're going to go to a more tribal model of community family? I know. Where do you
think Assange got that term from?
The Saudi Arabia feminism.
Yeah.
Where?
We're friends.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's. Oh shit!
Wow. I was in the Ecuadorian embassy with him. What do you think I do? I'm a philosopher. That's supposed to be my job.
Oh my God!
Right?
Yeah, you see, Lord Miles, this is what happens. This is how all these forces are brought together. But when it comes to Africa, I want to ask about Africa, by the way, after this.
You will never move back to London and get an Essex wife. I've now immunized you successfully with the jab against Britain. You will go somewhere else to settle and spread your sperm and have 8 kids and build a fucking business empire.
Well, speaking of empire, what about Africa? So, Lord Miles, you were in various parts of the continent. What did you think about the various cultures that you encountered there? Because I think that this is something that people don't really know that much about at all. It just one way or another, people just make something out of it based on something somebody said. So, what do you say?
Oh, Africa's beautiful in some ways because you can just get away from it all and get offered a wife on every single corner that you turn. It's amazing. So when I was in Tanzania, I had this girl coming on to me for ages. She was my tour at the time, and she was basically speaking about family and all this other stuff. And I was very tempted, but sadly I wasn't attracted to her, though she was good looking by African standards. But these people were desperate for kind of the I would say the Western idea of a perfect family. If they look over and romanticize about it. Same with Afghanistan at the end of the day. A lot of people in Afghanistan are actually convinced that it's like the 1800s idea of a Italian family where you get married at 18 when you have 6 kids. I had to tell my Afghanistan tour guide about OnlyFans. He died a little bit inside. Yeah, same in South Sudan. Basically, it's kind of it's a business exchange. That's what families are, and they're arranged by the elders, and then suddenly it works out because that's the end of the day. Both parties.
Right, Africa's most beautiful women are the South Sudanese. There you go.
Oh, exactly. Yes, yeah. They are amazingly tall. When I was about to visit one of their tribes, I was warned that I would be offered a wife, and I need to pay about 12 cows or something, which wouldn't be too much in terms of a local currency. And then instantly I'll be led into some sort of hut, and they'll start drumming to the beat of what I'm about to thrust with. And if I don't last a certain amount of time, I can't join my family. So that was quite the experience, but I didn't join in, thankfully. But at the end of the day, you can go to Africa with as a white guy with a degree and everything, go into an average job, especially in East Africa where you speak mostly English. And then you can basically find anyone and marry them within the space of a year, and everyone's going to be happy if that's your thing. I think
but the internet racism is preventing you from getting a trad-pilled African.
Exactly.
No, I'm kidding.
No, but
I wouldn't have an African wife. But
is there a danger in Africa that people perceive?
Yes. What did you just say, Lord Max? You would never have an African wife?
Oh no, I'm just not attracted to black people. I've got to admit.
I'll change your mind about that. You haven't been to Africa with me.
There we go.
I am a nightclub owner who sleeps at brothel madams. You have no idea who I am. I'll take you to Africa and see it totally differently.
Fair enough.
But when
Oh
it comes
God.
to
I gotta get in on this action.
when it comes to the society that you've seen in Africa, would you say that a lot of the places that you've been to, there was more of this tribal culture? Was there anything, let's say, if we're talking about more of the cities, was there anything that resembled the kind of culture you'd find within Sweden or London or whatever? Was this its own thing? Was it a combination in the cities of there being still this tribal culture, or has it completely changed to something else, something that you can't really define?
If you go right into the city centre, in the dead centre, you'll find very westernized people where they've got rich families and everything, and they're obsessed with social media, so they do wholly believe the whole sleeping around thing, even though they don't body it at the same points as, say, Westerners. But there is that kind of cancer in the centre. But if you go anywhere in the countryside or anywhere in the a secondary or tertiary city, you'll find a very rich culture of a slow lifestyle, established family, and traditional aspects of life, which is quite admirable to say.
So that is in the countryside, you would see those traditional aspects, and would you say the people in the countryside are wealthier than the people in the cities, or no?
Yes.
Yes.
In Seoul, yes, I would say so.
Ooh.
But if
Bard disagrees.
Yeah, no, not really. If you look at the numbers, it looks quite different. But I would say that you cannot talk about Africa in such a general way. You really can't. There's more diversity in Africa than it's diverse in the rest of the world.
Okay, let's get
The
specific.
striking thing with Africa is that Nigeria is so totally different from Ethiopia, and Ethiopia is so totally different from Tanzania, right? So once you start traveling around Africa, it's enormous variety, enormous. Some of these cultures are incredibly urbanized, but they're urbanized in different ways. Wealth is spread in different ways too. Some are agricultural economies, and certainly wealth can stay in the countryside, but some of the economies have now become industrialized, and then the wealth has moved to the cities. When the city inhabitants move to the countryside and buy property, that certainly the wealth has moved to the cities, and that's already happening in places like Nigeria. So you can't generalize with Africa, I think, in that way. I just say this: half of all children born in the world today are born in Africa. So demographically speaking, Africans will take over the world. We'll see huge migrations of Africans to the other continents because we're not breeding anywhere else any longer, and even to China and Japan. And we'll see all kinds of mixes and hybrids coming out of that. We'll also see some of these places in Africa will prosper, some will just fall apart and go into permanent civil war. I'd say Africa is very unstable, but some of these places, like Rwanda, for example, are indeed prospering. They are world class. They do things right. They have tech hubs. The tech hubs in Nairobi are great. We're already using tons of stuff for patents in our own technologies these days that have been developed in Africa. There's going to be more and more of that. And you have places like Mauritius and the Seychelles, etc., that are Singapore, Dubai-style economies, and incredibly wealthy already. So we'll see. The great thing with Africa is that it's split. The problem with Russia has been solved because Africa, like India and the European Union, are split entities. And I think the competition between different countries in Africa is really healthy.
And as far as something
that sounds like a total nightmare to a lot of people, though.
Whatever.
Africa.
As far as what happens to when we're talking about nightmares, one of the nightmares people imagine is countries like India and China being responsible for so much pollution, and then they would imagine that if Africa were to industrialize, the continent of Africa were to industrialize even more, we would see more of this pollution happening. What do you think about this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Africa and Asia are building nuclear power everywhere. Nuclear power is only problematic where? In America, Britain, Germany, and Scandinavia. Okay, the countries are going to be left behind, and the countries that make the terrible mistakes right now are the ones that think that solar and wind will solve anything. You need to build nuclear power, and you need to have cheap, abundant electricity available at all times. Eastern Europe gets that. Asia gets that. The Middle East gets that. Even Saudi Arabia is building nuclear power.
Geo doesn't get that.
Africa gets it too. Okay, so anywhere in the world where you have cheap,
pure demon power
available, you can create anything else on top of it. Energy is just the thing that it makes everything else flow. But expensive electricity, where Scandinavia, Germany, and certainly America is heading, is disastrous.
Wait, but Gio, why do you not stand nuclear power? What's going on?
It's demonic energy. It will release man-made horrors beyond our imagination. It changes our DNA. It's terrible. And we've never controlled
those reasons. I love it precisely for those reasons.
The problem is that it will just exacerbate the bugocracy, and people don't know this. If we had cheap, efficient power, it will just spread industrial society. It will lead to more well, you know all the dysgenic,
Wait, Gio, you talk about things changing your DNA and damaging you, but do you eat any soy products and consume sugar and touch receipt
Well, it's
papers?
unavoidable. I hate to say it. I try not to. I'm not exactly drinking Oatly.
I don't eat sugar.
No,
listen, guys. I gotta leave. Actually, I'm on hard call here. In what about now? Actually,
the only thing I drink nowadays is the soda
well,
water.
Alexander, before you leave, I want to make sure. Any final questions for Lord Miles, King Miles, as you also called him before, and any final thoughts?
An update on Assange.
It's not going to move to Britain and raise a nuclear family. He's going to stay Sufi monk. He's going to contact me for advice, and I'll gladly advise him. And he's going to conquer Africa or something with some kind of Iranian, Indian, African wife, or 3 wives, or 5 wives, or whatever. Have tons and tons of children, build a big business empire. And when he comes my age, he's going to be a wealthy banker and drink tons of red wine. That's Lord Miles ahead of you. He's a netocrat. He's a great role model for the kids. Follow Lord Miles.
And follow Alexander Bard for all the people. Yes, for all the people here who stand for Lord for Alexander Bard. Here is Bard's Twitter, which you could see on the side. So please follow Alexander Bard right now. He is an amazing guy. So Lord Miles, what did you think of this particular conversation with Alexander Bard? Not somebody who I would imagine you would have ever gotten a chance to speak with otherwise. I don't know if the opportunity would have come up, but let me know what you think.
I still don't want an African wife.
Oh, come on. We'll get there eventually. I met this very beautiful African princess at a film festival, the Palm Beach Film Festival. I still miss her. I wish I could contact her.
Is that
again.
your GF, Lev? Or...
No, Gio, I'm not talking about this. But
Lev, come on, you're gonna have to tell me eventually.
No, I don't. No, I don't. But
what the hell, Lev? I mean, you're just totally ruining our friendship right now.
No, but as far as the way that Alexander Bard looks at life, looks at philosophy, going out there into the world, I think you guys have a lot in common. He comes from more of a, I guess, artist, musical perspective, and you come from. I mean, would you say that you're an artist as well? Do you have an artistic bent?
I got accepted into art school when I was going to secondary school in the UK, but then I couldn't pay the fees, sadly. So it's kind of it's the 1920s repeating themselves again. I'm joking. But I would say I'm autistic, same thing.
Autistic, exactly. I thought about going to art school, but because of my background in philosophy, it would be redundant, because basically a lot of art schools just like they have these quaint little theory courses where they don't really do much, but it's sort of like, it's kind of like good studies. Yeah.
I had a friend who went to art school with some really crappy art university, and she was basically told to come to these optional sessions where they will see real artists perform. And then one of the sessions was literally a lady smearing her own poo on a canvas and just pissing in jars and stuff, fully naked. So
that's why the goat say man would be the true artist today if people gave him due recognition. The only problem is that he's too internet famous, and I think that there is something about the art world I find with internet famous people who are on YouTube. There is something that the art world just looks at it and just like, what is that? We'd rather be... Yeah, exactly. They see a dirtiness in the liberty and the edginess that a lot of these movements contain. And again, I'm not saying that they're perfect. I already criticized the things that I find bad about them. But there is a freshness to them that I'm not seeing in today's art world. And
depends. Like, I mean, there's post-internet art, but that's like sort of, even that's become a relic of like the 2010s.
I'm just talking about there being this general cowardice within the art world.
Today's art world is just a giant tax haven, basically. It's just a tax scheme at the end of the day. It's not actually for art's sake. Like I said, you can only, like Alex said too, you can only really experience art when you've actually, never actually... you can never experience art unless if you dealt with some hardship. And to be fair, a lot of people haven't really dealt with real hardship nowadays, so they're just using daddy's money to buy a canvas set and go to art school.
Yes and no, though. Here's where I would disagree. There are people out there like Flaubert. I mean, out there. They don't. He doesn't exist anymore. He's dead. But he's
been dead for almost 100 years.
He's been dead for almost 100 years. But he wrote Madame Bovary, and he was not really an adventurer and explorer. I think that there are situations like with Flaubert where you are able to have people who don't really like venturing outside that much, but their inner world is very active. And I find that a lot of people today, they don't have the inner world or the outer world. Like, I'd wish they'd have sex. I'd wish a lot of the Zoomers would have had sex, but they don't even do that. So they're not even applying this skill.
Well, if you watch shows like Euphoria, Lev, I mean, they're apparently Zoomers are just... I know it's bullshit. It's total crap.
People live their inner outer world through content creators. I mean, I've got to be honest, why do my followers have to come to Ukraine as well? They can just watch me do it. Same thing with the internet. There's no sense of exploration. You can find out anything about the world or any experience at any point online. If I want to see a magnificent painting, I don't have to go halfway across the world hunting for genius artists. I can just Google it. It's boring. It's too much. I think people need to actually be limited by the information and entertainment nowadays.
I think that if you were given in a way, I think maybe like the terminally online like incel schizo, they can experience, I think, a form of that artistry. Like, for example, the best example in my mind would be like Edvard Munch, who was like the original incel artist in some sense, and that he took his inner turmoil with women and he produced, I would argue, one of the best artistic corpuses in the work of painting in the last like 100 years previous to him. So, but I noticed that the way that it's mediated is really through self-destruction rather than any sort of productive effort. Like, only very few people, I think, can achieve a sort of an authentic expression of that, because of course a lot of people in the art world, they're sort of like fake cells about it. They're trying to tap into something that is either hyper politicized, which is inauthentic to begin with, or it's trying to experience those emotions and sentiments through a wholly like almost clinical and detached and academic way, which of course can never work. Because if you had like in the contemporary art world like a genuine like incel schizo, like, doing some performance, it just wouldn't work. It's like, I don't know.
I would love to see
it could work. I know.
But you're right now, Lord Miles, you've been to all these countries and you told us about Africa and Afghanistan and Kazakhstan. I don't think you've touched on that much. But would you say that people in general who have lived in these more tribal situations, if you were to, like Gio said, bring them into the modern era with all the appliances and all the cushy things that we have here in the United States, do you see this mass degeneration of spirit, for lack of a better word, or do you see there being a good way to balance out creature comforts? But the question is, like, who balances those out? Like, wouldn't it be easier to just succumb to whatever creature comforts you have and then degenerate from that? So I don't know, like, what are some of your thoughts there?
I really think, I really think it would just be better without the creature comforts, I've got to admit. I really don't see humanity keeping the self-responsibility it needs and passing it through the generations without it getting lost. I mean, everyone had wisdom back in the day where they knew certain things are wrong, but then it gets mutated with greater technology and then lines become blurry and ethical lines just get more and more complex. I think modern society has ruined humanity. When I jumped over the mountain to Kazakhstan, I came across a farmer who had probably never seen a tourist because of the region he was in. There was no roads, there was no nothing basically. He lived alone, he was doing farm work, he was something like 80 years old. He had about 4% body fat from what I was looking at him. He had the best jawline. He was just living on pretty much potato and the occasional piece of meat. and he was generally happy what he was doing. And then as I went into the capital, I saw people all dressed up in fancy clothes. This was not in Kazakhstan, by the way. This was in Bishkek, the country we jumped over from. When I saw these people in fancy clothes on their phones, they were more distressed about what's going on with a little screen in their hand than they were about anything else. When to the farmer who's actually happy, it means nothing. He doesn't know this world and he doesn't need it. I generally want to work a job where I can get enough money and I can buy a shack in the woods with a solar panel and maybe Starlink so I can download books and literature, and then I can isolate myself if I don't get a family. Like if I get to 40, I have no family, I'm going full like Ted K without the bombings, just with the isolation bit. I seriously really think there's something perverted about society that has come up nowadays. I mean, when I travel to certain regions, I meet these people, and I honestly question if they have it in a monologue, because they seem like, yeah, seriously, they seem really backwards. They're just kind of obsessed with this technology they've been given, and I just don't want to become part of it anymore. And I don't see how anyone else is coming to a better conclusion.
But does the farmer, you think, have the inner monologue, or do you think he's guided by certain things that have just like patterns repeating themselves over and over again throughout all of his ancestry, where he's just like in a Zen way going through the motions, but there may not be as much of an awareness, like a self-awareness of what's going on, or no?
I think he has more of it in the monologue than the people with the technology, because at least with the people with technology, they don't have the time or the allowance to actually think, because they're kind of trapped in that world. But this gentleman, he has no barriers. He can jump over with his life savings and drive into the city and indulge whenever he wants. But he's got the option, but actually doesn't take it. He's got the time where he's just in the field for 12 hours a day. He can think as much as he wants, but at the same time, his mind is completely clear because he knows what he wants. And what he has is what he wants at the end of the day. He's happy the way he is. But when with the person with technology, there's always want, give, want, take. There's no settling with them. There's always a new thing. I really just want a bit where I'm satisfied and I have everything I need, and I can just do my own thing and not need any input from the outside world. And that's how it has always been in history, if you go far back enough, and that's how it should be, I believe.
I want to be careful, though, when you're talking about people who do have the inner monologue and make the decision to do what they want to do. I also look at history of people who were also living as serfs or peasants or whatever, and who did do really horrible things. And I'm trying to kind of see, like, how do you distinguish between people who can be programmed by, if the nobility or the king or whatever says, go over there and like kill this person because the king or the church says you should do that. How many people go into the NPC mode who are living in these agrarian lifestyles? Because I don't want to over-romanticize, I don't want to Rousseau things up when it comes to them either. Although Rousseau was not agrarian, he was more like a hunter-gatherer. But either way, yeah. I don't want to over-romanticize these lifestyles and people either, because I'm not sure what exactly does happen when people are only doing things that have been passed down, and maybe that's for the best. But maybe there is a certain danger there, too, that we just don't see because we're not living in history. You could say we're living post-history. We're not living in the history where we would have seen what exactly these, these kind of lifestyles would have meant. But I don't know, like, is there any doubt? I don't want to be the seeder of doubt here, but is there any doubt to what you said before when it comes to, like, whether this could be applied to a lot of people and what happens then?
Well, I just depend, because I think if you're in these isolated pockets, at least you have community, and from community you do have some sort of thought process that goes through. But if you're in a big bubble of your society like we are at the moment, there's a million ideas whizzing around, and it gets to a point where you just don't make a choice, or you don't settle down on ideology. And then no matter what, if a king comes forward and tells you to do something, you have a 5-hour political debate online, and then the enemy is already at your front door. But at least with the small community, you can make those small decisions and go from there.
I can give you this example, and this is just a personal one. Again, I already know what the chat's going to do, but let them do whatever they're going to do. I don't care. So just personal example, not my personal example, but my family's personal example. When my mom married my dad, in order to get out of Russia, my dad had to be approved by his dad. His dad had to sign the papers granting exit from Russia. In order to do this, they had to go to the home village of my dad. And my dad, not my dad, my dad's dad, my grandpa. And my grandpa has not seen my dad for years and years. He's just this alcoholic dude who lives in a village somewhere. He was in the Soviet army before. He retired. And in this village, the women were chasing my mom around in order to like try and plot and kill her. And he had to tell his father that my mom is a gypsy, that she's not a Jew, because they literally, just like in Borat, they thought the Jews have actual horns that are growing out of their heads.
Lev, is this real? Or
This is
you
real.
make
This is completely real. What?
Oh my god.
Wait, they don't.
By the way, nice going with the Borat DVD on the Kazakhstan area. That's nice. But anyway, the reason why I'm saying this is I don't see a lot of wisdom there. I don't see a lot of this home-style country wisdom in this kind of approach of trying to kill somebody who comes in, who's not threatening you and just dressed normally just because they look weird. It reminds me of like the tribes in what was that tribe that killed the Christian missionary? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
North Sentinelese, that's it. The North Sentinelese. So it reminds me a bit of that, where you could say that, yes, they're doing certain things kind of to protect themselves and protect the society that they're in, but it doesn't mean that they're introspective. And that's why I want to avoid.
That's why I think you need a third input, a kind of a timeless ideological thing that's above humanity, and that's why I think the Bible comes in, because at the end of the day you reference that, and it's I think even atheists will agree that the teachings of the Bible in terms of I would say, how do you put it, the teachings of right or wrong, but in basic morals, I think the Bible will come down upon. Where the North Sentinelese are probably like Ooga Booga, it's Esau, fifth child, because it makes the rain go. But the Bible will kind of shut that down, thankfully.
Yeah, but it's very ironic though that the Bible has not been read by the actual people who claim to be of the Bible. If we're talking about most Christians in history, they were not reading the Bible. They were listening to somebody speak in a language they don't understand. They didn't have to. But again, I agree with Miles in that. I think people should read the Bible.
Imagine they read it religiously, which does make sense. They read it religiously to such a degree that he fully understood it, grasped all the ideas, and he contemplated over it, and he debated, they came to a sound conclusion. And I think that is a good way to create a good society. Now, would it be perfect? If a perfect society, it's either a dystopia or it's not even a real society. It's not good. But if you can come close to it, I think the Bible would be a good start, and that's why you had some religions, some religious pockets that actually turned out great, and you didn't hear about them because they were so busy doing their own little thing with their own little mundane lives, where they were just kind of happy and content in what they were doing.
Pockets,
Glass Cake. Go ahead, Lev.
Well, Pockets, yes, and shout out to Glass Cake. And I don't want. I want to make sure. What about Glass Cake?
Well, he had a good point in the chat, but what were you gonna say?
I was going to quickly say regarding these isolated pockets, I definitely agree that there can be situations like that, and that's great when that happens. I mean, you could even see today, like the Mennonites or the Amish, they seem to be doing pretty well, or even the Mormons, honestly. But then if we're talking about people like, for example, all the people who were called to war against the whole Protestant versus Catholic thing, one of the bloodiest events in world history, that's not great either, and they justified that by the Bible. So that's why I want to be real careful, even when we're talking about the Bible, who gets to say how exactly this book is going to be used.
We can tolerate that Protestants coming in and trying to, with their heretical doctrine. Come on, Lev, that's bullshit. And I do want to get to the
wait. What, out of curiosity, are you Protestant
Joy.
or no? Or is there any Protestantism in
he's
Lord
a based
Miles?
Tradcath, if I recall, or Orthodox.
Yeah, I'm Catholic.
There we go. Okay.
A lot of Protestants in the UK are basically just I don't read the Bible. I love gay poo pee sex.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But that's funny.
They're
because
not
it's-
even religious. It's like the United Church here in Canada. Some bishops don't even believe in God, believe it or not. It's crazy.
But that's a very different approach, you could say, than the original Protestants, because weren't they all about, hey, I'm not going to let some Latin-speaking priest interpret the Bible. I'm going to read the Bible myself.
Well,
so it's actually funny how things reversed, right? Where originally they were supposed to be the ones who read it, and now not so much. Although I don't know how many Catholics read their Bible either. Like you probably, Lord Miles, you've read the Bible from the beginning to end, right?
Not in that order, but yes.
What was your favorite passage from the Bible, if you have one that you could choose?
I would say the whole of Revelations in general.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the Book of Revelations, because at first I read about it and I was like, wow, there's some trippy stuff. And then I looked into the ideology behind it and it kind of clicked a little bit. And then I dug into it and I realized, oh, wow, this actually reflects a lot of modern day society. It's a great warning that people should heed in general. I mean, it has a divine teaching behind it, and it kind of loops back around with the divineness of God and how everything will end by his hand at the end of the day. And I don't know, I think that's kind of comforting. Some people might believe that religion is just a giant cope or comfort, and yeah, fair enough, but at least I'm happy at the end of the day. Like, that's one thing I think as well. If I am wrong, I've kind of just wasted life being happy with God. If I'm wrong, and if the atheists are right, they've just kind of been miserable, and they just they're right, but we have no satisfaction because it's just darkness.
Well, I think that in some ways it brings hell rather than comfort. In this, in the literal sense, I think that metaphorically, I mean, it sort of brings a sort of gravity to life that you wouldn't have necessarily if you were a materialist. But where'd Lord Miles
by the
go?
way, Lord Miles is not glowing right now, even though it is dark. So there we go. Case closed. He is not a fad.
Are you there, Lord Miles?
Lord Miles? Let's see. I don't know what's going on with Lord Miles' internet.
I think Bootler got him.
Oh, boy. Well, he's not in the... there we go.
There he is.
Yes, there we are.
Glass Cake brings up a good point. Miles' lifestyle is an alternative lifestyle that isn't a surrender. Can you hear me?
Miles, can you hear us? Everybody subscribe, by the way. Everybody who's listening, subscribe right now. BreakTheRules.tv. I wonder if some people are still watching on Instagram. That thing's been going along like a glitch fest, but it's still going.
Oh my God.
We are going to have Miles back right now. Don't worry. He is just adjusting. He is adjusting his whatever. He is adjusting his camera. He's going to go back. While Miles is not here, patreon.com/breaktherules. Become a patron today. Gio, what do they get?
Oh, what tier?
Well,
$5.
Yeah, $5. What do
you
they
get
get
the
for $5?
super secret. Well, you get all the audio files beforehand. You get access to our Discord. You become a Discord favorite where you can post images and so forth. Special grooming channels. That's the $5
tier. Yeah, dog grooming, cat grooming. Oh, Miles is back. Here we go.
Okay, good.
Hey,
hey.
Sorry guys, I don't know what happened there.
No problem at all.
There we go. So that's the $5 tier. You also get our undying love and support.
That's right.
$20 tier, you get a magnet from Lev's father.
Very beautiful wooden magnets. And
that renews every year. With different ones. $30, you get a print from me, one of 5 from the That Fuel No GF series. And the $50 tier, you get everything. You also get a Warhammer 40k statuette painted by Jules. You get any poster print you want. You also get a custom magnet that you can request from Lev's father. You also get painting by me in the Bob Ross series. And you will get, what is the other thing you get? Of course, you get your shout out and everything.
Yeah, well, here are the magnets, by the way. So, Lord Miles, if you could see my screen over here,
you also might get access to actually being on BTR if you're at the $50 tier. So
that's very nice. Amazing.
There you go.
And for the fans of Lord Miles, I wonder if we could have some kind of a Miles-themed magnet. Like, if you were to choose a magnet, what kind of magnet would you want to be created?
Please be patient, I have autism or something.
There you go. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, like a little puzzle, puzzle piece magnet.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe an airplane or something. Maybe travel related, something like that. I don't know. Maybe the Afghanistan flag. I mean, that'd be
It is funny, by the way,
There
how
you
your name is Miles and you get airline miles, because of all the traveling that you do.
I used
No,
to
there
do some
has to
airline
be,
miles.
I think, a crescent where it's like an airplane, the flag of Afghanistan, and whatever particular symbol of whatever where Lord Miles' region in Britain that he came from. There has to be like crescent made, I think, for Lord Miles.
Oh,
Maybe.
thank you.
Yeah.
This may be too much, but it may be workable. I want to ask you about outer space and aliens, things like that. I don't even know if we covered this.
Wait,
but
before we get to
okay.
that. So Glasscake says Miles' lifestyle is an alternative lifestyle that isn't a surrender to circumstances like quote unquote van life, which is nothing more than a survival technique. That's why he is significant. Well, what do you think of the tiny home people and the hipster? The hipsters are dead, but let's say millennial van life people that are like a lot of them have coder jobs. They can't get places anywhere else. What do you think of this sort of the tiny home van life type of stuff that was birthed here in Well, I don't live in Vancouver, but in Canada, and it came mostly from Vancouver and has metastasized to hipsters around the world. So, yeah, take it away.
Yeah, I don't think it's as nice as most people would say it is. At the end of the day, you're in a stuffy home where most of the time you don't have shower access. The home, is falling apart because you just built a massive structure inside a van. Everything smells like your socks and all that stuff because you have to wash every few days. You can't have pets quite easily. Heating's an absolute bitch, same as getting water and electricity. So you have to be really close to a major metropolitan area or some sort of industrial area. You're not going to be waking up to giant meadows and views most of the days. Most days you're going to be waking up in parking lots and so on. I think if you really want to travel, it's probably cheaper to fly around and live out nice hotels because at least you have a room, at least you have a little bit more liberty in where you go. And if anyone knows, if you drive across countries, especially in Europe and outside of Europe, getting visas for any car is absolute bitch. Like it's literally logistically impossible. If you in America, I would say America's a probably good shout for it, or Canada even, just because it's just a big area and big nation with so many changing landscapes. But I wouldn't do it for a lifestyle. I would say maybe do it for 1 year if you can. But then it comes up with the issue of how do you sell on a tiny home van because everyone wants to build it themselves because they're hipsters basically.
Yeah, like people were saying they're addicted to Instagram and it's sort of like an Instagram thing. Same with the tiny homes, not just the van life thing. But I noticed like people have this strange desire recently just by getting like millions of views for the particular type of content on YouTube, whether it be van life, bushcraft, or people that do some kind of rugged woodsman type activity. I noticed that it's almost like ASMR for people. Like you watch, in Canada, the biggest one, what's his name? Steve Wallace. He camps in different places. Camping is like, there seems to be this sort of, I've noticed in the recent few years, this type of content's very popular. And I wonder, same with traveling. I mean, Bald and Bankrupt is the best example. I wonder, is there something that people are missing that they wish to do it, or is it just rather content that turns off your brain for a little bit?
It's definitely escapism. That's what I think it would be. The grass is always green on the other side. They look around their life and they see an office desk and grey walls and maybe minimum wage apartments and or student accommodation or whatever it might be. And when they look around the world and see the strange world that seems undiscovered, and they think, "Whoa, I can go there and make something of myself and do something crazy." When they go there and realize it's a lot harder than it is back home because you're accustomed to your home and lifestyle and everything. So these people they want to run away, and I know that because I had the same feeling. I wanted to go to Afghanistan because look, it's Afghanistan. It's a Wild West. Same with Africa. That's why loads of men go there because it's crazy. Rules are not present. You can just do what you want.
But when you were in these places and you were staying in the hotels, did you get an experience of staying at somebody's house, kind of living the way that they lived? And what would you say are the differences between the hotel life and the life in these smaller communities?
Yeah, I would say in hotels, at least you'll be given some sort of guidance by the front desk. But if you live with someone on the front, you will be treated like a guest or an outsider. You'll never be treated like a local because you pretty much never be a local. No matter what, if you live in say Africa, say South Sudan for like 20 years, even if you're if you know the language and everything, they'll still see you as a white guy no matter what.
I heard Japan is similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll automatically assume you're rich or assume you want to buy sex or something like that. It will never be. You can never become integrated. It will always just be some sort of temporary holiday, or you'll always be some sort of weird outsider curiosity to them.
Well, even if you marry and have kids, and the kids go to school, and that's still not going to change.
They'll just say mixed. They'll just go, oh, mixed race couple, cringe. They'll say that. Honestly, they would.
Same with Japan, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Africans just hate mixed race couples. That's what I found in East Africa.
Well, what about the African-Chinese situation? Because did you notice?
Well, the Chinese hate Africans.
Well, but did you notice that there were Chinese businesses in various parts of Africa right now? Is it getting that visible, or what is that like?
I saw Chinese characters in Uganda. In Kazakhstan too, there was a Chinese restaurant I came across. Same in Bishkek too. There's just Chinese writing in ports and things everywhere. If you go into any shop, you can probably look at the toy and it'll be made in China or have some sort of Mandarin written on it. And it's kind of bizarre when you speak to these people here and they feel like they've got no. When I spoke to the Africans about it, they said, we want to create our own little strong nation, but we're always being colonized one way or another. They're basically saying we're constantly getting cooked and we have no manifest destiny, which was kind of true to some degree. I mean, they had no control of their own nation and they just feel like, they're being controlled by external forces. At least with the UK and America and somewhat China, they were first to get to their respective places. But with Africa, they just can't be dragged along by these giant corporations and mega companies.
Well, that goes back to the British Empire question, where I was reading a very interesting book called Modern Times. I'll give you the name of the author of that book. I don't know if you heard of that book, Gio. But in Modern Times, one of the excuses given for empires like the British Empire, and even more British Empire than French, because the French, they were kind of dicks. But with Britain, they talked about how there was this sense of not, I want to squeeze as much money and resources out of these nations as possible, because according to the author, a lot of the money was made hardly that much money was made on these various ventures. A lot of the money was made in other ways, but with these particular ventures into Africa and things of that nature, yes, money obviously was made, but there was still the sense of we can help these places, get to a higher level, yada, yada, yada. Do you think the same is being applied now by the Chinese government from the conversations you had, or do you think it's different? And do you agree? Do you agree with that premise as well, from that Modern Times book, that the British did have this sort of a sense of obligation that we're going to help rise these folks up?
Oh no, it's completely different. At least I think with the British, some individual idea that they're going to, influence the world and create a better world in general from the British hands. But with China, it's like, lol, money. We'll just. They just see these people, oh, you found gold? Oh, we can buy it off you for a fraction. We'll just take the entire bit. Yeah. It's just a giant, we go in here, we have loads of money, we're going to promise stuff, and we're not going to give what we promise, or we're going to take advantage of it. And I don't blame them, to be honest. If I was a rich Chinese businessman, I would consider doing the same to some extent. At the end of the day, there's no Chinese pride where they want to really, revolutionize Africa and make them into brothers. Never gonna happen. They
don't have that colonial model where they're going to interbreed and create a Hapa class that will rule Africa. They don't care about that shit.
They're cringe atheists who just want as much money as they can. They see it as a piggy bank. There's no.
Africa is exactly like a strip mine.
But then comes the million-dollar question here. If we're understanding the situation in Africa where, like it or not, there's going to be a gap of power and some big power is going to come in and is going to rule things, would it make more sense now that I think a lot of people in the West, because again, I'm not painting a rosy picture by any means of things that occurred under the British Empire or any of the other European empires. Obviously, there was a fair share of a lot of horrible things. But that being said, right now, if people are more educated as far as would-be future leaders who are in Europe or the United States or whatever, who have learned from their past of things not to do, and instead can maybe offer, a better way for people to live, would it make sense to actually revitalize, like this is going to be total neocon Lev here, would it make any sense to revitalize the imperial system in such a way as to protect these African nations from Chinese conquest? Or do you think that this is too bold, it's already too late, and the Chinese are just going to take everything over?
Oh, if it was up to me, I would revitalize the British Empire tomorrow. Like, I would set up colonies. I would basically go down the whole American Manifest Destiny route of, our system's better. Your ideology sucks, your culture sucks. We can help you out. We can guide you like father, like son, and so on. But it's never going to happen, British people just want to look after themselves, and they want to dabble with their mediocrity, and their slow empire will slowly dwindle and become mediocre. And same with the American Empire, which is going to become the next Britain in 100 years' time, and then in another 100 years' time, some other country's going to take over China, and so on. And it's going to become the same thing. When every country gets comfortable and at the top, they never stay at the top because they have no way to continue that success or reinvent themselves. Get one up. But these struggles that these developing countries endure, they completely take over other developed nations at the time. And I think that's where Africa's going to be just passed around like a little
pass around girl.
Yeah, pass around girl like an 18-year-old's dream whilst watching Pornhub. It's just going to get fucked constantly. Yeah,
and it is a big shame. And then I think of something like Iraq, which I think was a big mistake as far as America going in there. But imagine if we were to have had people who went into Iraq who would have been similar to the old school British Empire people, where they would have laid down the law and they would have just taken over. How do you think the people who are living in Iraq, who were, let's say, under Saddam Hussein before, would have reacted to that? Because we didn't do that. What ended up, the United States didn't do that. The United States made a deal with some other people who were, like the opposition of that tribe, and they're the ones who ended up ruling it and causing a lot of harm for people. Do you think that if the European cultural power, or whatever you want to call it, would have taken charge of Iraq, the locals would have reacted to it worse than they would have reacted, after this competing tribe took over in Iraq? Or do you think that they would have been okay with having this hegemonic European state ruling over them, like in the days of the British Empire with Egypt, for instance?
Well, Saddam and his people are very proud people. At the end of the day, I think they'll reject the British influence. But it does depend how you go about it and how you actually jump into that situation. Like, if America handled Afghanistan differently, they could have integrated the whole culture inside and slowly transformed it into a little overseas colony even. But they screwed it up, and then Afghanistan fought back and so on. I think with the way governments put together plans, I think Britain and America would totally be pushed back by Iraq in general if they tried to do the whole Manifest Destiny thing and actually take over and try and help. But I think Africa's different because they're desperate for someone to show them the way, and then a corrupt leader comes in, voted in, then they steal all the money, then run away to another country, and then you repeat the system 50 times.
Well, look what happened with Rhodesia with Ian Smith. I mean, he had a great... Yeah, he had a great plan. I mean, basically teach a ruling class to function as a civilization in Africa if they gave him time. But no, the British and Americans and the corporations said, "Oh, evil, bad, racism, apartheid."
Well, so there were also a lot of commies.
They rushed it through, and you got Mugabe.
Well, there were also a lot of commies, from what I understand, in South Africa at least. I'm not sure what happened in Rhodesia regarding their influence, but there was a huge thing with the USSR influencing things to turn out the way that they did in the African colonies. And again, it is a big shame. Like, did you know that we had, for example, who's the name? She's this Angela Davis. Angela Davis was one of the top people who came to the USSR from the United States, and she constantly gave lectures over there, earned a lot of money. So, like, Angela Davis is somebody that a lot of the old
She's like
Russians
the god
know.
of woke ideology.
Yeah.
Goddess of woke ideology. Yeah.
So. But regarding just the whole imperial question here, I understand that the Iraqis are a proud people and they don't want to have anybody under them. When it comes, though, to certain things like Iran, and you remember those images of the women in the dresses back from the 1970s, and I think same thing in Afghanistan. You had pockets of civilization there, and it comes down to this question that I asked originally.
Are you boomer posting, Lev, right now?
Yes, I am boomer post. No,
Iranian women in dresses.
Yeah, Iranian women in dresses. No, it comes,
so great.
No. It comes to the question of that whole. And again, if you think I'm boomer posting right now, I'm about to drop in the Star Trek reference. You know that whole Star Trek idea of do no harm. Prime Directive. That's it. So, Lord Miles, are you familiar with the Prime Directive?
I think roughly yes. It's no interference, and it's something like that.
Yes, exactly. So the question is, can there be this Prime Directive in the world, or is there something morally repugnant about that, where if there are certain places out there that do end up doing, things that would be considered to be against human rights, then if something can be done about it, something should be done about it. The only problem is that think of the children, think of the women response was something that may have been used in the past to bring people into a lot of countries, not for the sake of improving those countries, but for other reasons. Or it could have been a multitude. It could have been a little bit of that and a little bit of making money. So I don't know where exactly I personally stand on the Prime Directive question when it comes to leaving certain people the hell alone, but then what about, the women and the children and certain societies that are incredibly, incredibly cruel. Like they could be based in certain circumstances, but they could also be cruel.
I'm divided on this whole interference thing just because of a factor that we haven't discussed, is actually the nuclear bomb. Because what you could do at the end of the day, before the nuclear bomb was invented, you can let a nation go its own way and make its own mistakes and hopefully turn to you or take influence, and we can become a little bit more cooperative with the global community and so on. Or its system might become a success, and that's a great experiment and good on them. But now, because nukes have been invented, they're a force to be reckoned with, and all these countries, all these little micro-states that are just trying to exist, like North Korea and Iran in general and all these others, they're trying to develop a nuke just so they can sustain themselves and no other force can ever influence them. Like America can't come into a country that has a nuke, because then they know they can level the playing field at the end of the day. And then if, say, a major city gets nuked, the support for war will just plummet, and that's why North Korea is so desperate to get nuclear weapons. So I think if a country does seem like it's going down a route that we don't like, say the British Empire won't like it, and that country might get nukes in the future, absolutely invade the next day. Like, absolutely destroy the nation, rebuild it. But if the nation has nukes, I would say go down a diplomatic solution and possibly do what the Russians did during the 90s and infiltrate the institutions and install kind of puppets and then see if you can pull strings from the inside. I think it'd be good to influence from that situation, but at the end of the day, I also don't want to make a country too strong in comparison to my own, because that's one thing too. America and the US and all the other Western nations are so busy talking and trying to help other nations and giving billions, but then they don't actually look after their own citizens and actually fix their own issues at home. Yeah, so
well, foreign aid's a huge scam. Yeah. I mean, it's proven that it actually hinders these African countries. I mean, it's just. And
as far as Afghanistan goes, at Skankfest, I was speaking to this one veteran. He was talking about how when they were there, they were installing these various schools for the kids and things of that nature. I'm thinking, like, shit. Like, think of all history. Which military ever did that? Maybe I'm wrong, but usually it would go in somewhere, pillage, and have their way with the women, and then leave. As far as having a military that actually goes and builds schools and does that kind of stuff.
Well, the Romans did that.
True, but see, the interesting thing is that the Romans did that, but they did that to the colonies, right? They did that to a place which is now
well, yeah,
theirs.
I mean, you had to
And
accept
America,
Roman rule.
yeah, and America does not do that, and that's where I think the confusion lies, is that maybe a lot of these countries are used to this historic sense of a country going in there, taking over, and then building the schools. But it's like America goes in there, builds the schools, but then gives some other tribe carte blanche to,
Well, America does have that, but they have a very terrible... The way America does it inadvertently is through the NGO industrial complex, where they will send in their American-based NGOs to go in there and then teach school children about... trans rights and so forth.
I don't know.
That is the American colonists.
Wait. Hold on. That's a nice sounding meme. I don't know if they go all the way from 1 to 10.
No, it's true. It's very
Really?
true, Lev. They were teaching Afghanistan women about
priorities.
Susan Sontag.
Priorities. See, this is why I think Lord Miles can actually re-energize
Lev, you
the
don't
British
believe
Empire.
in trans marriage in Afghanistan, Lev?
I believe in Lord Miles.
You're a very bad American, Lev. I thought you hated Russia and you love America, Lev. You don't believe in trans rights for the Afghanis?
If we're talking about somebody like Lord Miles, I think Lord Miles is strong enough in spirit that if there are a couple of Lord Mileses out there, I doubt the power structure that we have today with the motivations and the ideologies of these NGOs, I doubt they're going to be able to withstand the power of somebody like Lord Miles. Again, I think it may be like this conservation of the virile energy, or at least the re-erection of this whole energy within you towards something that's bigger than you. This is something that I think the British Empire people had back then. Miles, you are somebody who is, a very handsome young man. And I think that people know if you want to have sex with any woman, you can. But the only thing that you're doing right now is you're deciding not to, and that's different, like Bart pointed out, somebody who is not able to have sex and then says, well, I don't want to do it anyway. And I think it's a similar situation with the British Empire, where the British Empire would have been like, you know what, we're not going to just fully exploit, do whatever the hell we want in these places. We could, but we're not. Instead, we're going to redirect that towards helping as much as possible. And again, I'm not saying that's everybody, but yeah.
I woke up this morning and I had a really good, sexual dream, to put it lightly. I was like rock hard, right? And I was there, like I was tempted, and then I thought about God, and I was like, no, I can't do it. I mean, I just kind of like walked like this to the bathroom,
Yeah.
And then kind of peed on the walls by accident to the shower, and then and so on. So I don't know. I really hope there's someone who can kind of have that self-control where they can do the right thing at the end of the day and actually have all the money and the power. And that's the one thing I wouldn't mind one day, but I think I'm going to settle down, in the near future and kind of start my own life. But I think if someone's in charge of Afghanistan right now, or even America, because it's definitely not Joe Biden.
I think
if these people are in charge, and
it's very interesting though, like the no fap thing. Yeah, but it's very interesting the no fap thing. I think like the problem is like if you're like alone most of your life, or if you're some kind of incel, I mean, there is that immediate release, but I think, I don't know, it's very interesting, the psychology of it. I think like the fact that there are certain like porn trends being normalized is sort of indicative of where the largely like male psyche is going, and it's not going in a very good direction. I mean, I think that...
But also I think the approach may be that there is still a focus among the religious people, or at least this was in the past. One of the reasons why I think a lot of the religiously raised people turn against religion is I think that there was still this aspect of, Daddy God does not want you to touch yourself because it's yucky. I think it's being looked at as this because I say so type of thing, as opposed to what exactly happens to you as a person and what it means when you not demonizing the acts at all, I think is the way, but actually trying to see what can be beyond this kind of state that you're in. And if that's the approach that's taken, I think that may be a healthier one, because otherwise, if we did live in more of a religiously, let's say, oppressive, however you want to say it, society, I don't think with the modern... whatever you call it, I don't think with the modern conditions that are around us as far as internet, cell phones, whatever, I doubt that would be able to be retained. because as soon as you start clamping down, somebody could find some other piece of information out, and they say, oh, masturbation is healthy, yada, 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 and off we go to the races. So instead, I think the only way out, if all of this that's going on right now is a human test, is a way of us learning from our mistakes, then it's not to just say, well, because I said so, or because God up in the sky said so, but it is to look at this much more thoroughly and to find out exactly what are these various processes that are going on inside of the human being, and what changes do happen to people who would forego immediate sense gratification, and does something end up growing inside themselves that may not have grown beforehand. And I'm not talking about tumors. Although there are people who say that as well. But anyway, I don't know. Do you see where I'm going with your, Miles?
I don't know about
I get
that.
what you mean. You're very right, mate.
See? Gio, Miles says I'm very right. And you said
No,
that
I mean
it's
the
about...
prostate cancer thing.
Oh,
I think that's
yeah.
largely bullshit.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, you are right. I mean, it's
prostate cancer. It's stupid. It's like it's like me saying, oh, if I slam your head against the wall 50 times, it might reduce the possibility of you falling down the stairs later because you have to stay in the bed. Like it's retarded.
Most men over 80 years old actually have some form of prostate cancer. That's statistically they say. Yeah.
I would rather have prostate cancer than a crippling porn addiction and erectile dysfunction with my own wife, because I'm attracted to, like, I don't know, some weird niche fetish that you can only find on black.com or something.
My favorite, I saw this picture of these two furries, well, with the inflated bellies, and their bellies were touching, and it reminded me of the
Oh my God.
It reminded me of the MasterCard logo. I think that is next. The MasterCard company should make a commercial with two furries, their bellies meeting up together like this and turning into the MasterCard logo. And that is how they're going to sell. Because there are a lot of furries out there today, right, Miles? Like, you've probably encountered furry culture.
Yeah, I mean, they've into this weird war stuff.
Yes.
Piss play and... Oh, I don't know.
Water sports, they used to call it back in the day.
Yeah. Now, it's weird because some of them are actually attractive people, and it's just bizarre. I don't know. Their parents.
I blame a mixture of neglect, child abuse, and being psyoped by Discord moderators into certain lifestyles. That's why I blame.
I don't think there was enough child abuse. Like, damn.
God damn.
No, not the right kind of child
Lord.
abuse.
No, I'm against any abuse at all. No, but when it does come to a lot of these fetishes, another thing that I find is very common is the bright colors. If you ever go to DeviantArt and look up the various...
A lot of them didn't have fathers, I would imagine.
Sure, well, if you look...
different, yeah.
Well, if you look up the furry art, it's very brightly colored. A lot of pastels, a lot of things like that.
They're all different regions of autism. That's what I think it is. You've got people obsessed with trains and, military and Roman history. And then you've got autistic people obsessed with video games. Everyone finds their niche nowadays, and they become more and more autistic, and then they kind of grow in that community. And that's when I think furries are a special little breed of people. People. Yeah.
The internet really is like an autism machine in that sense.
Yeah,
of like the sense of creating very neuroatypical behavior patterns. Not in the sense that the internet like clinically makes you autistic. I'm saying like you have to be an autist to really navigate the hyper-real world, I think, Yeah,
every kid nowadays gets a phone like a 13 years old. I mean, it's only if it goes downhill for them through puberty.
13 years old. That's too old, I guess, for most people. I'd say it's like 4.
Yeah, I know.
Like imagine those 4-year-olds who grew up with the iPads.
I'm not letting my kids own. I'm not letting my kid own like a smartphone until 16, and he's not going to go on the internet until at least 10. And when he's on the internet, it's going to be like North Korean internet, where he's going to have a Wikipedia and some other things, and only I can, show him this type of stuff.
Sure.
I'm going to control my child. He's going to be a little me. That's the whole point of having children, to help you out.
But some people would say that's evil and wrong, and that your children have to have free spirit.
I mean, I don't know. It depends on. It depends on people, because, for example, if we're talking about exposing, your children to various things out there, like, I don't know, certain movies that are made, like Clockwork Orange, for instance, great movies, genius movies, I'd say, movies you could say, not for 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and so on and so forth, but at a certain point, these are things that, like South Park, for instance, any of these.
I watched South Park in 2006 when I was 6 years old. I watched the South Park movie, and I don't know what swearing is, and that was my new thing for like 2 years.
Yeah, but see, you turned out fine. So I don't necessarily.
I did not. Yeah.
No, compared to a lot of other people, Miles, I think you did turn out fine. I think there is always going to be this irreverence culture for young people. In fact, I think it was Short Fat Otaku who did that video about irreverence culture, where the South Parks of their time, what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to rally against a lot of these busybodies who we see a lot on social media today. And it's very funny how we have a lot of these Zoomers who apparently have become like, they did not go through this adolescent stage of being rebellious against authority, and in a way they've succumbed to authority, where like the furry porn and all that stuff, that's part of the authority, that's part of the beast right here, furry beast. But you see what I mean, right? Like, there's nothing controversial and edgy about being a furry, or about being trans, or about being any of these things, or about being non-binary. This is just something that's par for the course. But what is edgy and controversial, like I said in the very beginning, is going to be going against all of these things. And where do you see that particular culture of irreverence going in the future?
Well, I think it's becoming a boiling pot of ideologies towards a slow, painful death of society and ideologies in general. Or there's a huge revolution where people basically just turn one way extreme, leftist extremes, rightist extremes, or so on, or it splits down the middle. Who cares? At the end of the day, people become extremists in one way so they can kind of get away with mediocrity. That's what we're seeing nowadays. Anyway, you can't. When the Nazis back then are nothing compared to people on 4chan that actually are pure Nazis that actually look at this type of stuff and they get into crazy crackpot theories, which is kind of funny, but at the same time a little bit concerning.
Speaking of which, there's a great comment here. Let's address this, Miles.
Yeah.
Miles is worse than a Fed. He's a Zoomer hired bougie boy who jets around the world while putting down people who are dropping out of Babylon and living simply. Where did Miles put down people that live simply? I don't know. I thought he was...
Yeah, isn't that the whole thing?
I literally said I wanted to sell my stuff and live in a cabin. I think that person's just mad that I'm traveling the world, and
you're a rich kid or some.
Yeah, I'm a rich kid who used to be homeless and actually has no family, and his family grew up on benefits, basically like welfare for Americans out there. So that makes perfect sense. I think they're just trying to cope and trying to fit this person is just this because of this. No, because I'm traveling and doing this stuff because I basically worked hard. Sacrificed a lot. Something worked in the end of the day. I don't know what it was, but it came together, guys. And then 65,000 people follow me because they want to see retarded opinions and see me do retarded stuff. And that works. And they're just there festering in the comments section of their own mediocrity, and they go home and lay in bed saying, "Oh, that Lord Miles guy, how terrible of him. How could he do this type of stuff?" I'm going to sleep very comfortably, knowing I'm going to cry myself to sleep and never accomplish anything and work my boring 9 to 5 and never step out of my comfort zone. Yeah.
Wow.
There you have it.
Eating on the chuds. Eating on the chuds.
All right, so before...
Wagey cagey. Fuck you guys.
Before we go, it's Super Chats time, all right? These are the Super Chats. So everybody right now...
Oh, by the way, did you hear the Whoopi Goldberg exchange, Lev?
No, I didn't. I prefer Whoopsie Goldberg from Tim and Eric. Look that up later for those who are watching.
She said that a certain event wasn't about race. It was about man. And then Joey Behar is like, what? Wasn't about race? Did you see that clip, Lev?
No. I got to take a look at that.
She had to apologize publicly. You didn't see that, Lev?
No, I'm not into these chicken.
Lev, was that certain event
games
about people hating people? It wasn't about race, was it?
I actually have no idea what you're talking about right now, Gio.
In the 20th century, that certain regime.
Oh. Okay, well...
I mentioned Joy Behar. That should be a dead giveaway, Lev.
I don't even know who Joy Behar is. I hear her name. I don't really know who exactly she is. This is how nice my life is, that I don't have to know who Joy Behar is. Like I just hear her name, it just like pops in, like like a wisp, and then it just goes away. But anyway,
look at this. By my fuck working people said like a real liberal. Listen, no, working people are liberals. I don't know, like. You know how many people in Ottawa right now who are basically like policy wonks and government people that are having their shit tossed by nonstop honking and posting about it on Reddit, how terrible it is that the honking will never stop. Those are real working class people. The true neat aristocracy will be right wing, okay? I hate to say No, listen, there's different degrees. I think that working people, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a small business person, if you're independent contractor, those are the people who are the true right-wing working class. Whereas if you're some government, like, wagey, cagey person, I don't know what to say. You have a fucking, you have a useless email job. Go fuck yourself, in my opinion. Everyone in Ottawa with useless email jobs that are terrified of the truckers, go fuck yourselves.
Well, this may be something that people end up finding out later on with the whole, Backstreet Boys World Tour, that so many of these office jobs were pretty useless, and there could be some culling there. Anyway, let us go to Super Chats, and this is the final chance for you guys to sneak those Super Chats. So here we go. The ABC 123456399, $5. Future Pope Geo Sneed Fund. There we go. Raizu, $5.
Raizu.
Hey guys, can you do a video regarding digital art versus traditional art? I'd love to see Geo debate this. Also, I'd like to wish Miles.
Digital art.
Also, that's right. You are digital art. Frankly speaking, you are digital art to the people who follow you. You are a digital presence, and you are an artist. Anyway. Also, I'd like to wish Miles much luck and cheers.
Oh, thank you. I think in March time, guys, January, February, March. Yeah, March time, I'm going to announce what I've done if I make it out alive, and I think you guys are going to like it. So you don't even have to follow me for it. I have a deal within the news. They said they'll air it as soon as it happens. So when it does happen, guys, I think we're going to have some fun. I think you guys are going to like it. I hope to do you proud, so thank you.
Nice. And finally,
I'm not joining ice, I promise. Carry on.
And then finally, we have Stop Asking for My Name, $5. Guest ideas. Dr. David, did he write this correctly? Skirbina, technological skeptic, author, correspond with Ted K for years. Well, that's as close as we're going to come to actually speaking with Ted K. Well,
I've heard of this guy. Yeah, and John Michael Greer. I think
John Michael Greer. Yeah,
John Michael Greer is actually very hard to get, but we could talk to Meta Nomad because John Michael Greer doesn't do a lot of stuff outside of just Meta Nomad. So we could ask him. That'd be great.
Yes, I mean, exactly.
I don't know. I won't want to grift off of his thing.
And finally, we got a new patron. Tito 12345678990. Surf Shack Tito is our new patron, and I'm very thankful for that.
Surf Shack Tito.
I don't know if Lord Miles, if you watched Rocket Power back in the day, but
I watched a little bit of it. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. So Surf Shack Tito, that's our patron.
Look at this tweet that Lord Miles shared. By the way, hooray, progress, global moment, and it's a trans athlete swimmer. Doesn't always cover up the genitalia.
You see this stuff I post on iFunny.
Oh god! Oh, you still use iFunny? Amazing.
I've had it for about 2,300 days on my old account, and my new account roughly 300 days.
Do you still have the flag, the iFunny flag?
iFunny is a true aristocracy of posters. People don't know about iFunny.
Yeah, you guys don't know about iFunny. It's basically a deep level 4chan with its own little community. You can't get into iFunny or deep iFunny because there's a featured section like the front page of Reddit. So anyone who downloads it doesn't know how to get to this section. So everyone's kind of just in this little community, and they only let people in very slowly, people that they know, friends, stuff like that. And no one really slips through cracks, and it's got its own little subculture that just for some reason has never been discovered. And it's not a psyop because it's run on Russian servers, so it's not some sort of US Fed thing, which is great. There have been loads of Feds on there, which is even better.
Wow.
I wonder. I could probably. I know my tweets have gone into iFunny. I've known people who are on there like Serpent Mound, but my first tweet I ever got onto iFunny was when this anime account ratioed me because I had this joke tweet where I said that anime girls eating burgers is cultural appropriation. And so this anime weeb just fucking ratioed the hell out of me. It was hilarious.
By the way, if you notice that there was a Chinese comment in the chat, I know you guys can't see it.
There
but
is?
I translated it, and here's what it says. Give me the elixir created by the God Emperor. Teach me to eat, but also fine and brain. Longevity is the same as the stone forever.
Whoa.
That's a good way to end this, I
Amazing.
think.
Hey, thanks, Chin Chin.
Longevity is the same as stone forever. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching, Lord Miles. Always a great pleasure to have you on, my friend. And best of
It's an honor to be here. Thank you, guys. And thank you to everyone for being watching.
Can people still fund your adventures?
Unfortunately, they have to keep the wheel going. It has to happen. So, sadly, you guys have forced me to travel, and thank you for the donations, and thank you for continuing my pain. So, yeah, if anyone wants to go and donate, just my PayPal would be greatly appreciated. I think I would go as far to say, if you guys do want to donate, just wait till my big trip is announced and I show what I did, because what I've done right now, I've gone into massive debt. I've just taken out a huge loan to make a big trip happen, because it's a more obligation of mine, and I'm not going to let this not work.
Wow.
So as soon as you guys hear it, it's either going to be the end of me or something bigger. So if you guys like what I do with this big trip, I throw a pound or two or $1 or $2 my way, and that would be much appreciated.
Is it a secret so far? Are you keeping it under wraps, or?
It's a secret, but I'll let you guys know off stream.
He's going to go into the middle of Chernobyl and go into the elephant's foot and take a bite. That's going to be his final trip. No,
if I get to the age of say 90 and I don't have a family, I'm probably going to want to do something like that.
Yeah,
just get the only person.
by the way,
unfortunately, I think they're dismantling the original site. They have this huge structure with this giant crane. They're actually going to dismantle the original Chernobyl. R.I.P. to Chernobyl.
By the way, for the question about whether I have bed bugs, because as I was moving the thing, like out popped like a tab that I did not know was going to be on the screen. It was a stink bug, so I found the stink bug inside of one of these books, and I had to release it outside. But anyway, that's what it was. So I was trying to find out what the hell is this weird looking bug. So that's a story.
Before you go, please go to my channel, Jenner Productions, at YouTube, where I have a video addressed to the truckers. Get very emotional and steamy in that one. So,
and also follow Gio on Twitter at twitter.com/giant.
Oh, Lord Miles, but you're always probably following Lord Miles. Lord Miles has recently given me the mutual, so thank you, my good friend.
Nice.
I've greatly appreciate it.
No, it's the least I can do. I'm surprised to follow you sooner. Thank you.
I know.
And of course, guys, because I'm a Fed, I'm following everyone else. So, if you like
yes. And
He's
also
taking Peter Thiel money, ladies and gentlemen.
And also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/LevPo, LEVPO. I'm going to be posting more artwork, yada, yada, yada. And lastly, on the show that we're going to have on Thursday, once again, it's going to be the video game show called Which Way Will Gamer Culture Go? And here it is in the chat for you to see it. I know, Gio, you're probably not going to be able to see the cover right now, but that's why I have the... what do you call it? This. Hold on. What is wrong with me? I have the camera, virtual cam, and that's why I'm going to show off the cover on the virtual cam so you guys could see it. I don't know if I'm going to be repeating the Instagram.
Oh my God! Did you? I clicked on it. Did you? You used fucking Last of Us 2.
I used Last of Us 2, and I used.
You should have had the meme where she's joking.
And I used Miss. And I used Miss Italy 2022 right over here.
Oh, this is terrible.
Miss Italy 2022. And I used the guy from, I don't know, Lego Man from Roblox. I don't even know.
Two of my favorite memes come from The Last of Us 2 with the trans character where it's the choking one, but it's the one where they're fucking each other. And it's like people that edited it, it's like, Like my favorite one was when Sonichu is choking Chris Chan, and Chris Chan is like, "No, I created you." Oh my god.
That's like
Wasn't that?
that's like Frankenstein's monster going after Frankenstein.
Wasn't there a photo going around where trans Chris Chan looked like a certain US politician or family father or something?
Oh yeah, where Chris Chan looks like Ben Franklin.
Yeah, that was it.
One of the founding fathers.
Yeah.
Whatever. Is there any updates on Chris Chan? I wonder. But
Free
No,
my
what-
man, he did nothing wrong.
Maybe after Christine gets free, you can take her on an adventure together and have her
Oh,
explore
God.
the world. Bring her to China, because Chris Chan was always
Yeah.
talking about China,
Yeah,
China this, China that.
And maybe the
no.
electric chair or something.
Oh no! Don't say that. Come on.
Bring Christine to the Afghanistan. There you go. To
Yeah.
the rooftop.
Oh God! What
Instantly
is wrong
scope.
with you people? Have some respect.
Apparently, this Gamergate stream, we're going to have a journalist from the New York Times who is married to Emily Nussbaum of pop.
Yeah, it's
culture.
great. I look forward to it, and he looks forward to it, and it's going to be a great time. So listen, the fact that we're able to have journalists from the New York Times on is a great thing, and we should
It's gonna
respect.
be a
We
total
should
disaster.
respect
You better
them.
send to the chat like this stream live. I mean, I don't know. What
I know.
to
Well,
tell you.
I don't know what's gonna happen, but either way, I'm very excited for the stream on Thursday, and I'm very honored to have Lord Miles here with the whole BTR community. Please subscribe. Please help Lord Miles out on his adventure. I really appreciate the time you took here, and look forward to having you again soon. Who knows what kind of surprise guest we're gonna bring with you next time. It'll be something completely random, completely you'll never guess what it is. So I don't even know what it is yet. We'll see. Or maybe I do know and I'm not saying. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Patreon.com/breaktherules. You know it. You love it. Mwah! Good night, everybody.
God bless.
Thank you, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Here we go. Okay, that's finished.